The results for the final mock exam before the Big 5 entrance tests were officially posted. Only students who reached the 4th stage of body refining with a blood vitality of 400 points were eligible to participate. Starting tomorrow, anyone who failed to meet that mark would have to stay home and prepare for the standard cultural exams instead. I sat in the back corner of the classroom, staring at my results with a bitter taste in my mouth. My blood vitality was 399 points. I was exactly 1 point short. I had been in this world of spiritual recovery for 16 years. As a commoner from the bottom of society, I had worked myself to the bone just to reach the 3rd stage of body refining. When I first crossed over to this world, I thought I'd be like a main character in a novel, showing off incredible powers. But reality hit hard. My talent was rated at level 1, the lowest possible. Now, it looked like I wouldn't even get the chance to take the exam. Just as I was sinking into despair, a purple progress bar suddenly flashed in my mind. God-tier insight system successfully activated. Loading, 10%. My heart leaped. The system was finally here. I stared at that purple bar, watching it grow painfully slow. Around me, the classroom was a mess of noise. Most of my classmates were sighing and complaining, while only a dozen or so looked proud and triumphant. They were the elites. If they passed the Big 5 exams, they could become true martial artists, rising above the masses like dragons among men. For the rest of us, the chances of ever becoming a martial artist were slim to none. Our homeroom teacher, Su Quan, tapped her knuckles on the desk. The room went silent instantly. She was a semi-martial artist, and nobody dared to act out in front of her. "Class dismissed," she said, her eyes sweeping over the room. "Lin Yuan, come to my office." I pulled my focus away from the purple progress bar and followed her. Su Quan walked ahead of me, her professional attire highlighting a fit, toned physique that came from years of training. When we reached the office, she turned to me and handed over a report. "The final results are in," she said calmly. "Your blood vitality is exactly 400 points. You qualify for the Big 5 exams." I blinked, stunned. 400. "Yes," she replied, her expression neutral. "The testing equipment had a small glitch during the last session. The scores have been adjusted." I knew better. Testing equipment didn't just malfunction like that. She had intentionally padded my score to give me a chance. A wave of warmth hit my chest. "Thank you, Ms. Su," I said softly. "Don't thank me yet," she said, her voice turning sharp. "Even with the qualification, passing the actual exam with only 400 points is harder than climbing to heaven. I heard you've never practiced a formal cultivation technique or eaten demon beast meat. Is that true?" I nodded. My family was poor. Even basic cultivation manuals were luxury items I couldn't afford. I only had the free, foundational techniques provided by the school. I made up for the lack of resources by training longer than everyone else, but demon beast meat was a consumable I could never dream of buying. "Good," Su Quan said, a small smile playing on her lips. She reached into her desk and pulled out a polished wooden box. "Inside is the 1st stage of the chaos body refining technique. Take it." My eyes widened. The chaos body refining technique was famous for boosting blood vitality, but it was incredibly expensive. "I can't take this," I stammered. Techniques like this were strictly regulated. They had to be registered to a single user. An illegal distribution could land you in prison or, worse, exiled to the demon beast zones to dig trenches. "Don't worry," Su Quan said, sensing my fear. "This is a legitimate copy. I'll register your identity myself." I hesitated. We were just teacher and student. This gift was far too valuable. In this world, everything came with a price. "I don't give gifts that people are allowed to refuse," she said, her eyes locking onto mine like a hawk. She stepped forward and pressed the box into my hands. "I'll be blunt. It's important to me that you pass. 9 students in this class are guaranteed to get into the Big 5. But for me to receive the school's high-level reward, I need at least 10. You have level 1 talent, yet you reached 400 points through sheer willpower. That makes you the most promising candidate left." She was gambling on me. She knew I had a steady personality and decent comprehension. If I used this technique, I might hit the 5th stage of body refining before the exam. At that level, my blood vitality would be 500, making a decent martial arts university a real possibility. I need you to give 12/10 of your effort, she warned. Push your strength to the absolute limit. I left her office and tucked the box deep into my backpack. I walked home through the crowded streets of the civilian district. The apartment buildings were packed so tightly there was barely any light between them. In this era, land was the most precious resource, and people like us lived in pigeon cages. My family of 4 shared a tiny space of less than 50 square meters, partitioned into 3 cramped rooms. As I stepped through the door, the metallic scent of blood hit my nose. I recognized it immediately. It was the smell of demon beast meat. Old Lin, where did you get the money for this? My mother's voice drifted from the kitchen. This must have cost hundreds of credits. I borrowed it from old John. My father, Lin Tianchuan, replied. His voice was loud and hearty. He's not rich either, but as soon as he heard our son was taking the Big 5 exams, he handed over 1,000 credits without a second thought. My father was a veteran of the Demon Beast Wars. He never became a full military officer, but he had seen real combat. He used to be at the 9th stage of body refining, but he lost an arm in battle, causing his blood vitality to plummet. Now, he barely maintained the 6th stage. This tiny apartment was the only thing he had to show for his service, a reward for the blood he'd spilled. But how will we pay him back? My mother, Zhang Lan, asked, her voice trembling. She only made 300 credits a month, and my father's disability pension was only 200. They barely made enough to keep us fed. Don't worry, my father said. We're brothers. He said I can pay him back whenever our son becomes a martial artist. I hope he really can, my mother sighed. She knew as well as I did that getting into a martial arts university was a monumental task, let alone actually becoming a ranked martial artist. I took a deep breath, pretending I hadn't heard a word. Mom, I'm home, I shouted, pushing the door open as the system in my head finally pinged. The loading bar reached 100%. You're back late, kid. My father, Lin Tianchuan, laughed. Your mom is making a demon beast feast tonight. I acted surprised. Where did we get demon beast meat? My mother, Zhang Lan, chimed in quickly. She didn't want me to worry about the family's finances. A distant relative heard about your exams and sent it as a gift. I didn't call her out. I looked at my father. He looked pale. Despite the heat, he wore long sleeves. One sleeve hung empty, but the other was rolled up just enough for me to see it. A tiny needle mark on his forearm. My heart sank. He hadn't borrowed the money. He had sold his blood. Blood vitality was the most precious resource for a human, and even though my father was disabled, his level 6 blood was still valuable. Selling it meant his cultivation would likely drop to the 5th stage, or even lower. I couldn't stand to look at it. I'm going to see Warner, I said, walking toward the back room. It was the only room in the house that got any sun, though only for 2 hours a day. The room was spotless. A pale girl lay on pink sheets. Yuan, you're back, she said. Her voice was weak, but she sounded happy. I helped her sit up. Warner wasn't my biological sister. My father had found her as an abandoned baby on a battlefield and raised her as his own. She had no feeling in her legs and couldn't walk, but we were closer than real siblings. How was school? She asked. How did the mock exam go? I sat by her side and started telling stories. I told her about exciting events and funny things that happened in class. In reality, school was a brutal, competitive grind. Most of what I told her was a lie, but it made her smile. That was all that mattered. When dinner was ready, I carried her to her wheelchair and pushed her into the living room. The meal was simple, 2 plates of vegetables, except for the steaming plate of demon beast meat my mother placed directly in front of me. It smelled incredible. The aroma filled the small apartment. Eat up, I said, pushing the plate to the center of the table. Everyone should have some. Yuan, this is for you, Warner said, her eyes wide. You're the one taking the exams. I didn't argue. I took the plate into the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and sliced the meat into 4 equal portions. I walked back and placed the largest piece in front of my father. What are you doing? He asked, trying to laugh it off. I'm an old man. Am I supposed to enroll in a martial arts university for seniors? If you don't eat, I won't eat, I said. My voice was flat. I sat there, arms crossed, staring him down. The room went quiet. My father's smile faded. He saw the stubborn look in my eyes and knew I wouldn't budge. Look at that. My mother sighed, trying to break the tension. He's just as stubborn as his father. Wanna, let's eat. We're lucky today. I finally picked up my chopsticks. As I swallowed the meat, a warm current spread through my stomach. It wasn't a huge boost, but I could feel my vitality stirring. If I had been eating this every day like the rich kids at school, I wouldn't be stuck at a vitality score of 399. But everything was about to change. I looked at the loading bar in my mind. 99%. Mom, Dad, Warner, I said solemnly. Don't worry. I will become a martial artist. I promise. I stood up and went to my room before they could say a word. As soon as I closed the door, a crisp notification echoed in my head. God-level insight system successfully loaded. Congratulations, host. You have obtained basic insight. You can now gain insight into any technique. Current insight points, 10. I didn't wait. I had been practicing the basic body refining art for years. It was a common, messy manual taught in schools that included basic movements, punches, and kicks. It was the most ordinary technique in the world. Use insight, I commanded. A flash of orange light surged through my body. Suddenly, every detail of the technique played out in my mind. Points of the manual that had confused me for years became crystal clear. The way I had been training felt amateurish compared to what I understood now. New realizations hit me like crashing waves. Insight successful. Consumed 10 insight points. Blood vitality increased by 100 points. Basic fist, leg, and movement proficiency increased by 1,000 points. I gasped. My vitality had jumped to 500. That was the 5th stage of body refining. A moment ago, I was a failure who couldn't even pass the mock test. Now, I had a real chance at a university. I felt power surging through my limbs, so much that I wanted to punch through the wall. I pulled up my status panel. Name, Lin Yuan. Realm, Body Refining Stage 5. Vitality, 500. Talent, Level 1. Insight points, 0. I frowned. The points were already gone, and I still had a much better technique I needed to learn. System, how do I get more points? Complete system tasks or unlock achievements, the voice replied. That was fair enough. Then, another notification popped up. Newbie gift pack detected. Would you like to open it now? I didn't hesitate. I hit use immediately. A notification flashed. Congratulations. You have obtained 100 insight points and 10 supreme star essence stones. I gasped. In my world, star essence stones were the ultimate currency for cultivation. A low-grade stone cost 1,000 blue star coins, and a high-grade one went for 100,000. But these were supreme grade. Each one was easily worth over 1,000,000 coins. I was suddenly, unexpectedly rich. My face flushed with heat, but I forced myself to calm down. I couldn't just sell these. High-grade stones were rare enough, but if a kid like me tried to move supreme-grade stones, I'd be dead before the check cleared. I turned my attention back to the system. 100 insight points was exactly what I needed. Now, I could finally master the chaos body refining art. I pulled the golden manual from my bag. It was the foundation of everything. Thousands of years ago, when the spiritual energy first returned to the world, the strongest human of that era released this text to the public. If he hadn't, humanity would have been wiped out by the beast tides long ago. Over centuries, the greatest masters had refined it into the perfect cultivation technique. The manual had 9 layers. The copy I held only contained the first. Usually, it took a normal person 1 to 3 years to master this first layer, depending on their talent. System, start insight for the chaos body refining art, I muttered. I opened the first page. Suddenly, the complex, cryptic symbols transformed. What used to look like ancient gibberish now felt as simple as basic math. Insight successful. Blood vitality increased by 50. I flipped to the next page, my heart racing. Insight successful. Blood vitality increased by 50. Insight successful. Blood vitality increased by 100. I tore through the pages, the knowledge flowing into my soul like a river. By the time I reached the last page, the system chimed again. Congratulations. First layer of chaos body, refining, art mastered. Proficiency, mastery. Total blood vitality increased by 800. Insight points consumed, 80. Remaining points, 20. I stood up, and my bones popped like firecrackers. Power surged through my veins, so intense I felt like I might explode if I didn't move. I checked my status. Name, Chu Foam. Realm, Martial Artist Level 1. Blood Vitality, 1300. Talent, Level 1. Insight Points, 20. I was stunned. A single session of insight had pushed me this far. I couldn't sleep. I threw on my training gear and headed for the door. Foam, where are you going so late? My mother, Zhang Lan, asked as she tidied the living room. To the park to practice. I called back, already halfway out the door. The park near our apartment complex was built for cultivators, filled with spiritual plants and training equipment. Since it was late, the place was mostly empty. I found a strength testing machine in a dark corner. I didn't even wind up. I just snapped a casual punch at the padded target. Asterisk thud. 1,400 pounds. Asterisk. I stared at the display. Before this, my vitality was 399 and my max punch was maybe 400 pounds. It was usually a 1-to-1 ratio. But now, a casual flick of my wrist surpassed my total vitality. I took a breath, sank into a low stance, and threw a proper straight punch, channeling every ounce of power from my legs to my waist. Asterisk boom. 1,800 pounds. Asterisk. That was the power of the chaos technique. My movements were now so precise it was as if I'd practiced them 10,000 times. Next, I moved to the reaction tester. I set the difficulty to level 2 martial artist. 3 rubber bullets hissed through the air from different directions. I leaned, ducked, and slid. They didn't even touch my clothes. I dodged 10 more in a row without breaking a sweat. I cranked it up to level 5. 10 bullets flew at me like lightning. I managed to dodge 9, but the 10th clipped my shoulder. I sighed. Still, my reaction speed was already at a level 2 martial artist level. I needed the higher layers of the manual, and I needed them soon. Why is this so top secret that we have to meet here? A familiar voice drifted through the trees. My enhanced hearing picked it up clearly. A few meters away, a man in a loud floral shirt sat on a bench, smoking. It was Zhang Yanwei, a teacher from my school. He was a peak level 9 body refiner, just like Su Quan, but he was a total scumbag. He used his uncle's position as vice principal to bully students and harass women. Young Master Zhang, you're going to love this. It's about Teacher Su, another man whispered. It was Li, a sleazy, sycophantic teacher I recognized from the staff room. I froze. I was about to leave, but the mention of Su Quan stopped me. Su Quan. Zhang Yanwei's eyes lit up. Did you find some dirt on her? Li handed over a file, grinning. You told me to keep an eye out. Look at this. She altered a student's mock exam scores. It's a major violation of school policy. Technically, it's even illegal. Zhang Yanwei laughed, a cold, predatory sound. Perfect. She's rejected me so many times, but let's see her say no now. I'll make her crawl. And my promotion? Li asked, rubbing his hands together. Consider it done, Zhang Yanwei said, standing up. I'll go see that little bitch tomorrow and see if she's still so high and mighty. As they disappeared into the shadows, I stepped out from behind the trees. My fists were clenched so hard my knuckles were white. They were talking about me. Su Quan had risked her entire career to change my grades, and now these two snakes were going to use it to destroy her. I looked down at my hands, feeling the 1,800 pounds of force vibrating in my muscles. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Zhang Yanwei. I decided right then that he would be the first person I'd take down. The next morning, I headed to school just like any other day. My first class was body refining with Su Quan. Since most of the students had already been sent home to prepare for the exams, the training grounds were almost empty. Su Quan stood at the front of the group, her training suit hugging her perfect figure. A few of the guys in class turned bright red just looking at her, their minds clearly wandering. There are only 30 days left, Su Quan announced, her voice firm. We're moving past the basic techniques the school taught you. From now on, you'll focus on your own cultivation to make a final sprint. If you hit a wall, ask me anything. The students dispersed to find their own space to train. Su Quan walked straight over to me. She knew my family was poor and that I couldn't afford a private tutor like the wealthy kids. Some of the others even paid for extra training at local martial arts gyms. The chaos body refining technique is incredibly deep, she said softly. If you find it difficult to practice, I can walk you through it. I knew what that meant. A personal session with someone of her level usually cost hundreds of credits an hour. She was offering it for free. It's not difficult, I said with a small smile. I'm not having any trouble yet. Sukwon blinked, looking surprised. She probably thought I was just being stubborn or showing off. You'll realize how hard this technique is once you really get into it, she warned. But if you're confident, that's good. Keep at it. I'll be checking on your progress. I nodded and closed my eyes, beginning to circulate the first layer of the chaos body refining technique. As the energy moved, I felt tiny specks of starlight energy, the white force that had appeared after the spirit recovery, slowly drifting into my body. This was how humans and beasts alike grew stronger. But compared to the sudden bursts of insight I'd experienced before, this manual cultivation felt painfully slow. I stopped after a few cycles. 30 minutes of work hadn't even raised my blood chi by a single point. The other students were still focused, soaking up the energy in the training ground, which the school had specially treated to be richer than the air outside. Suddenly, a man in a loud, flowery shirt swaggered into the training area. It was Zhang Yanwei. He couldn't even wait until the end of the day. He was coming for Su Quan right now. A cold smirk played on my lips. Teacher Zhang, Su Quan said, her face instantly souring. This training ground is reserved for my class all morning. What are you doing here? Xiao Su. I'm here because we have things to discuss, Zhang Yanwei said, his grin widening as he kept walking toward her. Whatever it is, it can wait until after class. Don't interrupt my students. Please leave, Su Quan snapped, her eyes cold. Don't be in such a rush to kick me out. Look at this first. Zhang Yanwei stopped right in front of her and handed over a folder. It was the evidence of Su Quan altering my blood chi scores. Su Quan took the file, and her face went pale. Her brows furrowed in a tight knot. So, Zhang Yanwei said, sounding very pleased with himself. Do you still want me to leave? We'll talk outside, Su Quan whispered, her voice tight. Why go outside? I think this spot is perfect. Zhang Yanwei laughed, putting his hands behind his back as he began to pace around the students. He stopped right in front of me and paused. This student seems to be doing well. His breathing is steady. I bet his blood chi is incredibly high, right? He shot a mocking look at Su Quan. Su Quan was vibrating with rage, but he had her backed into a corner. She couldn't explode in front of the class. This has nothing to do with anyone else. Let's go outside, she said, trying to force herself to stay calm. Oh, we can go outside, Zhang said. But only if you agree to that trip I asked you about last time. Everyone knew what he was implying. He wanted to force her into a date. Su Quan had rejected him dozens of times already. In your dreams, she hissed. She knew that if she agreed once, he would hold this over her head forever. I suggest you think this through, Zhang Yanwei pressured, stepping closer. I heard you're a top candidate for the school's high-level rewards. With a body-refining pill, you could finally break through and become a true martial artist. Are you really going to throw away a future like that? The training ground went deathly silent. Every student stopped practicing to watch the two teachers. Su Quan's fists were clenched so hard her knuckles were white. Becoming a martial artist was her life's dream. She had sacrificed everything for it. But she couldn't let this scumbag control her. As she hesitated, a calm voice broke the silence. Hey, impotent man, can you move? You're blocking my light. I was still sitting on the ground, looking up at him. The training field stayed silent for 3 seconds before it absolutely exploded. Did you hear that? Chu Feng just called Teacher Zhang impotent man to his face. Is he insane? He's asking for a death wish. Yang Weinan was Zhang Yanwei's nickname among the students. It was a play on his name, but there were also rumors that the name was factually accurate. Zhang Yanwei's face turned the color of raw liver. He was shaking with fury. Kid, what did you just say? You want to die? Say it again. Sure, I said. I funneled my blood chi into my lungs, making my voice boom like a thunderclap. I said move. Impotent. Man, you're ruining my practice. My voice echoed across the entire field, loud enough for the other classes nearby to hear every word. I used the pressure of a martial artist in my shout, a hidden lion's roar that left Zhang Yanwei seeing stars. Humiliated and enraged, Zhang Yanwei snapped. If you want to die, don't blame me. He lunged, throwing a punch straight at my chest. He used 70% of his power, roughly 6 or 700 pounds of force. Against a normal student, a hit like that wouldn't just hurt. It would cause internal organ damage and ruin their chances at the national exams. His heart was pure poison. "Stop!" Sukwon screamed. She hadn't expected him to actually attack a student in broad daylight. She tried to leap forward to block him, but they were both level 9 body refiners, and she was too far away. She wasn't going to make it. Some of the students turned their heads away, unable to watch the impact. Crack. I didn't even stand up. I just threw a casual counterpunch, meeting his fist head-on. The sound of snapping bone echoed through the air. Zhang Yinwei didn't follow through. Instead, he stumbled back 2 steps and collapsed onto the ground, clutching his arm. I had held back, using only 1,000 pounds of force. I didn't want to kill him and deal with the legal mess. Not yet. The students were frozen in shock. That sound of breaking bone hadn't come from me. What happened? Was that Teacher Zhang's arm? Am I seeing things? Why is the teacher on the ground? Su Quan blurred to my side, shielding me with her body. Are you okay? Are you hurt? She was frantic, checking me for injuries, still not processing what she had just seen. I'm fine, I said calmly. But you might want to check on the impotent man. I'm fine. I'm fine, Su Quan muttered, her face turning a bit red as she glared at me to stop using the nickname. On the ground, Zhang Yinwei was cradling his right arm, let out a pathetic, high-pitched scream. I knew exactly what had happened. My one casual punch had shattered his bone completely. You didn't just insult the teacher, Zhang Yinwei growled, clutching his shattered arm as he struggled to stand. You actually dared to sneak attack me while I wasn't looking. You're finished. He was gasping through the pain, trying to shift the blame. The students around us started whispering, and I could see the confusion on their faces turning into realization, at least the version they wanted to believe. They figured I must have used some dirty trick. To them, it made sense. Teacher Zhang couldn't have actually lost a fair fight to a loser like me. He must have been holding back to be merciful, and I had taken advantage of it. If I had openly assaulted a teacher, I wasn't just looking at expulsion. I was looking at jail time. Everyone seemed to buy his story except for Su Quan. She had a sharp eye. She had seen the raw power in Zhang Yinwei's punch, and she had seen how easily I had brushed it off. I could see the doubt and curiosity swirling in her eyes. She knew something was very wrong. The commotion quickly drew a crowd. Other teachers rushed over, and within minutes, the big guns arrived. The grade director, the dean, and the vice principal in charge of discipline. Yinwei, what happened to you? Vice Principal Zhang cried out. He rushed to his nephew's side, his face turning a deep, angry red. Who dared to attack a teacher? This isn't just a school violation. Hurting someone inside the city is a felony. Vice Principal Zhang glared at me, his eyes cold. He was a level 1 martial artist, the strongest person in the school besides the principal himself. He let his aura flare out, a heavy pressure that made the students around us tremble. Vice Principal Zhang, it's not what you think, Su Quan said, stepping forward to defend me. Shut up, he barked. You're his homeroom teacher. You need to stay out of this. He directed his martial pressure straight at her. Su Quan tried to speak again, but the sheer force of his presence pushed her back a step. He was using his rank to bully her into silence. I didn't like that. I stepped in front of Su Quan, moving as if I were taking a casual stroll in a park. The moment I stood between them, the pressure on her vanished. I'm the one who hit him, I said, looking the vice principal right in the eye. Got a problem with that? The vice principal froze. He couldn't understand why his pressure wasn't affecting me. In this world, the gap between a body refiner and a martial artist was supposed to be an ocean. Even if the physical strength was close, the spiritual pressure should have brought me to my knees. He cranked up the intensity, but I didn't even blink. Good. You admit to the sneak attack, he said, masking his confusion with anger. Come with me for investigation. Sneak attack. I laughed. It was self-defense. He swung at me with everything he had. Was I supposed to just stand there and let him kill me? Don't be ridiculous, another teacher chimed in, mocking me. If Teacher Zhang had used his full strength, you'd be dead already. The other teachers laughed, but Zhang Yinwei, still lying on the ground, looked pale. He knew the truth. The facts are clear, Vice Principal Zhang snapped. For attacking a teacher, You are expelled immediately. We're handing you over to the security bureau. Su Quan gasped. If the security bureau got involved, I was looking at heavy fines or a prison cell. Vice Principal, please. We need a proper investigation. I saw Zhang Yanwei attack first. The crowd laughed again. They figured Su Quan was just being overprotective. To them, for a student to break a teacher's arm in a fair fight, that student would have to be a martial artist. And there were only a handful of those in the whole school. If a genius like that actually existed, the school would treat him like a god, not an outcast. Su Quan, enough, the vice principal said. He had no children of his own and treated his nephew like a son. He wanted blood. Where is the registrar? Someone get over here and delete Chu Feng's enrollment records right now. A teacher hurried off to handle the paperwork. And you? The vice principal pointed at another staff member. Call the security bureau. Tell them we have a violent criminal in custody. He looked at me like a cat watching a cornered mouse. Take him to my office. Don't let him escape. Two teachers stepped forward to grab my arms. I let out a cold snort. I didn't move a muscle, but I let my own aura explode. A wave of martial artist pressure rolled out of me like a physical shockwave. The two teachers slammed to a halt, their faces turning white. This is a martial artist pressure, someone screamed. The teacher who was about to call the police froze. He was the same one who had snitched on me the day before. He knew I was supposed to be a weakling who couldn't even reach level 4. Vice Principal Zhang's expression shifted from arrogance to pure terror. The pressure hitting him was like a tidal wave. He realized the impossible. I had already reached the level of a martial artist. The crowd went wild. He's a martial artist. You need a blood chi of at least 1,000 to put out pressure like that. My God, we have a once-in-a-century genius in our school. Teacher Zhang is screwed. The principal is going to treat this kid like a treasure. The vice principal was sweating buckets. If I really was a martial artist, he had just tried to expel the biggest star the school had ever seen. Quick, stop the registrar. Don't let him process the expulsion. What's going on here? A voice boomed. An older man in a sharp suit walked into the arena. It was Sun Yongxin, the school principal. Principal, we have a genius, a teacher shouted, rushing to explain. A student has reached the martial artist realm. Sun Yongxin's face lit up with pure joy. A high school student becoming a martial artist meant every top university would be begging to recruit me. It meant prestige, funding, and massive rewards from the government. Is it true? The principal asked, rubbing his hands together. Which student is it? The vice principal couldn't even find his voice. He just stammered, looking at the floor. The principal noticed the heavy atmosphere and saw Zhang Yanwei bleeding on the ground. Another teacher leaned in and whispered the whole story into his ear. The joy on the principal's face vanished, replaced by a storm of rage. Vice Principal Zhang, he roared, his own aura shaking the room. Why wasn't I informed of something this important? The vice principal's legs gave out, and he collapsed into a heap. The principal turned to me, his voice suddenly soft and warm. Student Chu Feng, I apologize. It seems I haven't managed this school well. You've been wronged. I'm not wronged, I said coldly. I beat up a teacher. It's only right that I get expelled, isn't it? Expelled. The principal looked like he was about to have a heart attack. Who said anything about expulsion? The principal looked like he was grinding his back teeth to dust. The thought of expelling a monster genius like me was enough to make him want to scream. In his mind, he was probably cursing Vice Principal Zhang's entire bloodline. It was like owning a family heirloom worth hundreds of millions, only to have your useless son smash it into pieces. Student Chu Feng, Principal Sun Yongxin said, his voice trembling as he tried to calm me down. This was all Vice Principal Zhang's fault. I promise I will give you a result that satisfies you. He turned to the crowd, his face hardening. Zhang Yanwei broke into a classroom without permission and intentionally tried to harm a prospective martial artist. He is hereby officially expelled from this school and will be handed over to the Security Bureau immediately. Zhang Yanwei's face turned the color of ash. He started begging for mercy, but no one listened. In this city, hurting someone could land you in prison for 2 or 3 years. If the principal really wanted to push it, he could even be sent to the dangerous front lines. As for Vice Principal Zhang, the principal continued, his voice booming. For abusing his power and shielding his relatives, he is officially fired. Permanently blacklisted. The students and teachers watching nearby started cheering under their breath. These two had spent years stepping on everyone, and seeing them fall was pure justice. Once the principal saw my expression soften, he let out a long breath of relief. Student Chu Feng, why don't we go to my office to discuss the details? I knew what this was about. The punishment was done, and now came the rewards. But I wasn't finished yet. I pointed a finger at Teacher Li, the man who had snitched on me earlier. Principal, this man tried to attack me too. How should we handle him? Teacher Li's face went pale. He looked like he was about to faint. Li Yongyan collaborated with Zhang Yanwei to attack a student, Sun Yongxin barked. He is stripped of all positions. We will investigate him and handle it accordingly. Since Li hadn't actually landed a blow, the principal couldn't throw the book at him immediately, but we all knew his reputation. Once they started digging into his records, they'd find plenty of reasons to lock him up. I nodded, satisfied with the principal's attitude. As we walked away, every eye in the arena followed us with envy. My homeroom teacher, Su Quan, stood there in a daze, his face a mix of shock and pure excitement. Inside the office, the principal handed me a sleek black card. Student Chu Feng, there is 1 million blue star coins in here. He had already cursed the vice principal 1,000 times in his head because the school administration had been too efficient. They had already processed my expulsion. 1 million coins was a massive sum, enough to make my heart race, but I kept my face like stone. This was the highest reward the school could offer. Sun Yongxin was betting everything to keep me. If you re-enroll and represent our school in the upcoming 5 Great Academies entrance exam, he said, this money will be your scholarship. I've been here a long time, I said casually. Switching schools now would be a hassle. Sun Yongxin's face lit up. He knew I was staying. I have 2 conditions, I added. First, besides the 1 million coins, I want the manual for the 2nd stage of the chaos body refining technique. I had done my research. The first 3 stages were sold publicly, but anything beyond that was restricted to the military or the top universities. Second, I continued, my breakthrough happened because of teacher Su Quan. I want his reward increased tenfold and issued immediately. The principal frowned, thinking it over. The 2nd stage manual alone was worth 200,000 coins. Su Quan's original reward included body refining pills, which were worth 50,000 each. More importantly, they were incredibly rare. The school only got a few every year. I agree to the first condition, the principal said. As for the second, I can't do 10 times the pills because we only have 3 left in stock. But I will give all 3 to teacher Su Quan immediately. I nodded. 3 pills should be enough to help Su Quan break through to the martial artist realm. When I left the office, the black card felt heavy in my pocket. 1 million coins was more than my parents could earn in a lifetime of hard work. And this was just the beginning. With my God-tier insight system, I was going to keep climbing until I reached the very top of this world. Meanwhile, back in his office, Su Quan was staring at a small, translucent jade bottle on his desk. When he opened it, a rich medicinal fragrance filled the room. He couldn't believe it. That stingy principal had actually handed over 3 body refining pills. He knew it was my doing. He gripped the bottle tight, vowing to break through so he wouldn't be looked down on by his own student. The next morning, I was at the body refining park. The morning sun was just starting to peek through the trees as I slowly pushed a wheelchair. I'm feeling a bit tired, Phone. Maybe I should just stay home for a few days, the girl in the chair said. Her voice was soft and gentle. This was my sister, Chu Wanner. I knew what she was doing. She didn't want to waste my time when I should be training for the exams. Don't worry, Wanner, I told her. I'm definitely getting into a top academy. It's a sure thing. You still need to be careful, she said, her brows furrowing. Just give it your all so you don't have any regrets. I nodded, realizing I needed to find a way to tell my family about my true strength soon. Otherwise, they'd be worried sick until the exams were over. Just then, my phone rang. Hello, is this Chu Feng? Your order for the Chaos Body Refining Stage 2 has arrived. Are you home? I'm on my way, I said. I pushed Wanner to the gates of our complex, where 2 men in suits were waiting. They were professional and polite, holding a black device. I placed my palm on it, and a green light flashed. Identity verified, one of them said. They handed me a silk-lined box and left as quickly as they had arrived. Phone, is that a cultivation manual? Wanner asked, her eyes wide. Where did you get the money for that? Even though she wasn't a martial artist, she knew these things cost a fortune. A family like ours couldn't afford something like this. The school gave it to me as a reward, I smiled. With this, the entrance exams will be easy. Our lives are changing, Wanner. I'm going to find the best doctors in the world to fix your legs. You'll walk again, just like everyone else. She looked at me, stunned, before a beautiful smile spread across her face. Back in my room, I opened the manual for the Chaos Primal Formula. The text stated that a person with average talent would need at least 10 years to master the second stage, which would increase their vitality by over 500 points. A notification flashed in my mind. Asterisk Insightful Cultivation Manual detected. Insufficient insight points. Unable to initiate instant comprehension. I needed 200 insight points to unlock the next stage. My balance was sitting at a pathetic 20. I was nowhere near the goal. System, I thought, are there any available tasks? A notification chimed in my head instantly. Asterisk Congratulations, host. One task available. Accept now, asterisk. The task was simple. Complete the martial artist certification. If I passed at 1 star, I'd get 100 points. 2 stars earned me 200, and a 3-star pass would net me 300 points. I hadn't expected the system to be so generous. In this world, the title of a martial artist changed everything. Once you were certified by the Martial Artist Union, you were no longer a commoner. The union provided high-end housing, monthly stipends, and funding for cultivation. You got massive discounts across society, too. The catch was that you had to complete annual missions, like hunting mutated beasts, and if humanity was ever threatened, you had to head to the front lines. I didn't mind the risk. If human society fell, there would be nowhere left to hide anyway. Besides, my raw strength was already close to a level 2 martial artist. With my mastered combat techniques, I could probably take on a level 3. I changed into my training gear and headed for the door. Phone. Are you going to practice? I ran into my father, Chu Tianchuan, who was carrying a bag of beast meat. Dad, I'm heading to the Martial Artist Union. I might be late, I called out, already moving past him. Don't forget to take Wanner downstairs for a stroll this afternoon. I disappeared down the stairwell before he could even respond. The kid runs faster than a rabbit, I heard him mutter behind me. When I reached the Martial Artist Union, I stopped dead in my tracks. A massive black stone lion statue stood in the plaza. The moment our eyes met, a crushing wave of pressure hit me. It felt like the beast was alive, tensed, and ready to tear my throat out. I stood there, frozen, my mind racing to find a way to counter its imaginary strike. For several minutes, I visualized every footwork technique I knew, simulating a dozen different ways to dodge. By the time I found a path to survival, I was drenched in sweat. I let out a long, shaky breath. Young man, did you actually sense the martial intent within the black-winged lion? A gentle voice asked. I snapped out of my trance. An elderly man in a traditional suit, his hair white as snow, was standing right next to me. I hadn't even noticed him. Hey, Elder Chin asked you a question. A burly man with a buzz cut snapped from behind the old man. Watch your manners, the elder whispered. The burly man shut his mouth instantly. I looked at them. The burly man was definitely a martial artist, likely at a level I couldn't even read. The elder, however, felt like a regular neighbor. He had no aura at all, which meant he was either a civilian or so powerful he was beyond my comprehension. I don't know what martial intent is, I admitted. I just felt like the lion was going to attack. I tried 10 different ways to escape before I finally survived one. The burly man looked stunned, then skeptical. This statue was carved by one of the top 10 powerhouses in the Union. It contained the essence of pure aggression. Ordinary people couldn't feel a thing. To say a teenager could sense it and dodge it sounded like a fairy tale. Elder Chin, however, looked intrigued. Tell me, how did you dodge it? I tried to run, but every path was covered by its strike, I explained, thinking back to the simulation. In the end, I realized I couldn't just run. I had to use my strongest move to counterattack, using the momentum to create a gap for my footwork. The elder nodded slowly, a spark of realization in his eyes. Impressive. The waves of the future truly push the old ones aside. He smiled, his eyes full of appreciation. I gave them a quick nod and headed toward the entrance. Behind me, I heard the elder sigh, to sense the intent at his age and to find the solution. Remarkable. He's probably bragging, Elder Chin, the burly man grumbled. He looks 16. If he's already a martial artist, he'd be more famous than the geniuses in the city. You don't need to be a martial artist to sense intent, the elder replied, shaking his head. If your understanding of fist techniques and footwork is deep enough, it happens. Let's follow him. At the entrance, a guard blocked my path. This is the Martial Artist Union. What's your business? I'm here for the certification exam, I said. The guard stared at me. I looked too young. He couldn't tell if I was a prankster or a hidden genius from a wealthy family. The exam has already started. You'll have to book the next session. When is that? 2 weeks from now. I frowned. I couldn't wait 2 weeks. I needed those insight points now. Let him in for this session. A voice called out from behind me. The guard looked ready to snap at the intruder, but when he saw Elder Chin, his face went pale with respect. Yes, sir. Right away. I glanced back at the old man. Thanks. A guide led me deep into the facility. In the main hall, 50 candidates were already lined up. Join the line. You're number 51, a muscular proctor shouted. I am Wu Lai, your chief examiner. Listen up. You only get 3 chances in your entire life to certify as a martial artist. If you aren't ready, leave now. I hadn't known about the 3-strike rule, but it didn't bother me. I knew what I was capable of. Good. No cowards, Wu Lai boomed. The exam has 2 parts, basic abilities and combat. We grade you from B to S. Only those under 20 years old taking their first exam can qualify for A or S rank. Though, don't get your hopes up. This branch hasn't seen an S rank in 10 years. He stepped toward a machine. First up, the strength test. Number 1, step forward. A young man in his late 20s stepped toward the strength testing machine. He looked incredibly nervous. He took a deep breath, gathered every ounce of strength in his body, and threw a heavy punch. The display flashed, 980 pounds. He failed his first attempt. He only had 1 chance left. I watched his face turn pale. The pressure was getting to him, and I could see his form breaking down. He was too tense. When he swung for the second time, he only hit 950 pounds. He was out. I watched everything from the sidelines, absorbing the atmosphere. Suddenly, I noticed Wu Lai, the chief examiner, stepping toward Elder Chin with a respectful bow. Elder Chin, what brings you here in person? Wu Lai asked. Elder Chin smiled, his eyes drifting toward me. I found a young man who seems interesting. I just came to watch. Wu Lai followed his gaze and saw me standing there, calm and composed. He looked surprised. He had already checked my file and knew I was only 16, but seeing Elder Chin's personal interest made him take me much more seriously. In a place like Qingyun, Elder Chin's status was massive. He didn't just show up for anyone. The testing continued. 1,100 pounds, pass. 1,050 pounds, pass. 950 pounds, fail. The line moved steadily until 1/5 of the candidates were already gone. Number 51, step up, Wu Lai shouted. I walked toward the machine. I had a system mission to complete, and I needed a 3-star rating to get those 300 insight points. I wasn't sure what the criteria were, so I checked with the system internally. A B rank was 1 star, an A rank was 2, and an S rank was 3. The examiner signaled for me to strike. Instead of punching, I looked at him. Excuse me, what score do I need for an S rank? The room went silent for a heartbeat before erupting into laughter and jeers. The other candidates looked at me like I was insane. I was just a 16-year-old kid, and they thought I was being arrogant. Even Wu Lai walked over, looking me in the eye. To get an S rank in strength, Wu Lai said seriously, you need to hit at least 1,600 pounds. Some of the men here were 30 years old and could barely crack 1,300. I heard the crowd starting to boo, telling me to stop wasting time and just hit the bag. I didn't let it bother me. I took a breath, activated my basic cultivation technique, and threw a clean, effortless punch. The numbers on the screen started flying. 500, 1,000, 1,300, the crowd stopped laughing. The numbers kept climbing until they settled. 1,850 pounds. I nodded, satisfied. It was a normal hit for me. But the room was dead silent. People were whispering, wondering if the machine was broken. They couldn't believe a kid my age could hit harder than a veteran. Wu Lai was vibrating with excitement. He knew he had a monster on his hands. Elder Qin just nodded, looking pleased but not surprised. The rest of the basic tests were a breeze. I cruised through the speed and neural reaction segments, scoring S ranks across the board. Elder Qin, where did you find him? Wu Lai whispered, clutching my results. He's just a student from a regular high school. He must have been hiding his strength for the college entrance exams. Elder Qin just smiled and said nothing. He wasn't interested in the rewards for finding a genius. He was interested in my potential. Then came the final hurdle, the combat test. His attributes are incredible, Wu Lai noted, watching me prepare. But at 16, his actual fighting experience is probably his weak point. Even so, he's a guaranteed A rank. Elder Qin chuckled. Don't be so sure. You'll see how he fights soon enough. Only half of the original group remained. Wu Lai brought out a team of 10 professional martial artists. These weren't students. They were seasoned fighters who had held their titles for over a year. Pick your opponents, Wu Lai told us. If you want to pass, you have to hold your own against them. The pros were arrogant, laughing and telling us to hurry up so they could get back to their real missions. One by one, the candidates went up and got absolutely crushed. The skill gap was massive. One guy with a mohawk was taking people down with barely any effort. Number 51, you're up, Wu Lai called out. Pick anyone you want. I knew that to get that S rank, I couldn't play it safe. I pointed straight at the guy with the mohawk. The room went quiet again. That was Zhang Chong. He was a peak level 1 martial artist, inches away from level 2. He was the strongest one there. Me? Zhang Chong laughed, looking insulted. Kid, I'll give you one chance to change your mind. No need, I said, stepping onto the stage. I choose you. His face darkened. He leaped onto the platform, his eyes full of annoyance. The rules were simple. No weapons, no intentional crippling. Begin, Wu Lai shouted. Zhang Chong moved like a predator, lunging at me instantly. He wanted to end this in one move to save face. I didn't panic. I used my basic footwork, shifting my weight just enough to let his fist whistle past my ear. He looked shocked that I dodged, but he quickly transitioned into a sharp elbow strike toward my chest. I caught the blow with my palms, absorbing the impact perfectly. I could feel his surprise. He realized I wasn't just some lucky kid. I knew I had to do more than just win. I had to win decisively to get that S rank. It was time to end this quickly. My mind was fixed on one thing: getting that S rank and claiming the 3-star mission rewards. I didn't give Zhang Chong a chance to breathe. I lunged forward, propping up his elbow with one hand while my other arm snaked underneath his guard. Damn it! Zhang Chong's eyes went wide. He realized I was going for a joint lock. If I snapped his arm, his career was over. He twisted his body violently, desperate to slip out of my iron hand lock. But that was exactly what I wanted. I wasn't actually trying to lock his arm. I was baiting him. As he contorted to escape, he left his face wide open. I saw his expression twist in panic as he realized the trap. He tried to pull back, but I'd already calculated his escape route perfectly. I delivered a heavy, crushing blow right to the center of his face. Zhang Chong's body went limp instantly, and he collapsed onto the stage. The room fell into a deafening silence. A mere trainee martial artist had just taken down a battle-hardened, peak level 1 veteran. It didn't make sense. Zhang Chong hadn't even had the chance to use his specialized martial arts techniques. Congratulations, Elder Qin, Wu Lai shouted, his face flushed with excitement. You've discovered a true S-rank genius for our branch. Elder Qin's smile widened. Even he hadn't expected me to be this dominant. I could see the gears turning in his head as he re-evaluated my worth. Little brother, your combat skills are incredible, Wu Lai said, stepping up to congratulate me. Instructor, I asked, wiping the sweat from my forehead. Is defeating Zhang Chong enough for an S rank? Wu Lai laughed. Of course. Honestly, you would have gotten an S rank just by holding your own against him. You didn't actually have to beat him. Oh, I thought the requirement was to win, I said, scratching my head awkwardly. I had gone all out to make sure the victory was decisive, not realizing I'd already exceeded the requirements long ago. Elder Qin personally handed me my martial artist certificate. My identity was now officially recorded in the Martial Artist Union database. No matter where I went, I'd be treated with the respect my rank deserved. And here is your S-rank reward, Elder Qin said, handing me a package. Inside were 3 million blue star coins, 10 body refining pills, and 10 high-grade star essence stones. On top of that, I would receive a monthly stipend of 100,000 coins in one pill, provided I completed at least one union mission per year. One more thing, Chu Feng, Elder Qin added. Since you're an S-rank, you have permanent residency rights in the elite martial artist district. Your info is already in the system. You can move in today. I thanked him, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. I had planned to use the reward money to rent a decent place for my family, but this was even better. Wait a moment, Elder Qin called out as I turned to leave. In 1 month, Qinyun City is hosting the Genius Tournament qualifiers. Are you interested? The Genius Tournament. I paused. I'd seen it on TV. It was where the best of the best competed for massive prizes. I should warn you, he said seriously. The injury rate is about 50%, and most competitors will be older than you. Think about it. Here's my contact info if you decide to join. I took the materials and left the building. As soon as I hit the street, the system chimed in my head. Asterisk congratulations, host. Martial Artist Certification Mission complete. 3-star difficulty. Reward, 300 insight points. Asterisk. A smile spread across my face. Finally, I had enough points to master the second stage of the Chaos True Origin technique. But first, I had to tell my parents and sister Warner the good news. I hailed a taxi, something I never used to do back when I was broke, and gave the driver my address. But before we could pull away, my phone buzzed. It was my mother, Zhang Lan. Her voice was frantic. Xiao Feng, your father is hurt. He's at the hospital. I can't come home to cook. You'll have to find something yourself. My heart dropped. What happened? Which hospital? I'm coming right now. Third People's Hospital. Your father has some surface wounds, but Warner, she's in a coma. She hasn't woken up. My stomach churned. I had grown up with Chu Warner. She was the closest person in the world to me. Driver, Third People's Hospital. Fast as you can. I slammed several $100 bills onto the dashboard. The driver didn't say a word. He just floored the accelerator. When I arrived, I found my mother pacing the hallway outside the emergency room. Mom, where are they? Your dad is in the ward, but Warner, she's still in the ER. They won't let me in. I nodded and burst into my father's room. When I saw him, my blood boiled. Chu Tianchuan was lying in bed, his face bruised and swollen beyond recognition. There were dozens of dark purple marks all over his body. Who did this? I hissed, my voice trembling with rage. Xiao Feng, don't worry. I'm fine, my father wheezed. Just scratches. Tell me what happened, I demanded. He explained that he had taken Warner to the park. He'd left her for just a moment to buy something, and when he returned, a red-haired punk was harassing her. Despite having only one arm, my father had stepped in to protect her and slapped the guy. In response, the punk called 5 or 6 thugs to beat my father senseless while Warner watched, eventually collapsing from the shock. I was so angry I couldn't speak. I punched the metal bed rail, leaving a deep dent in the steel. To attack a disabled man and a girl in broad daylight, they were animals. Who did it? I asked again. I did, a voice drawled from the doorway. A group of men walked in. He was flanked by several muscular bodyguards in suits. I scanned them instantly. All of them were level 8 or 9 body refiners. You're the one. I stepped forward, my fists clenched so hard my knuckles turned white. Before I could reach the red-haired brat, a man in a suit with slicked-back hair blocked my path. Kid, he sneered. You really want to try something? This is the city, the slick-haired lawyer sneered, adjusting his tie. Hurting people here means legal trouble. Besides, we're just here to resolve the issue. My aunt, Zhang Lan, rushed over and grabbed my arm. Her hands were shaking. Xiao Feng, don't be impulsive, she pleaded. My father, Chu Tianchuan, called out from the bed as well, his voice weak but urgent. Seeing the sheer terror in their eyes, I forced my rage down and gave a stiff nod. The red-haired brat grinned, looking smug. My name is Zhang Qi, and this, he gestured to the man beside him, is my lawyer. What do you want? My father spat, his face dark with anger. We've already called the police. The lawyer chuckled, a cold, oily sound. You called them? Even if you hadn't, we would have. You attacked young Master Zhang first. My clients were simply acting in self-defense. That's a lie. I barked. My father's face went pale. He knew how this worked. They were powerless, and these people clearly had the connections to twist the truth. The lawyer pulled a document from his briefcase and waved it in the air. We've already had the young master's injuries evaluated. He suffered minor trauma from your slap. Here is the medical certificate. My father and aunt stared at the paper, speechless. In an instant, the victim had become the aggressor. In this city, causing even minor injuries to someone like Zhang Qi could lead to 3 to 5 years in prison. We don't want to make things difficult for you, the lawyer continued, his voice dripping with false sympathy. Young Master Zhang sees that you aren't exactly wealthy. We won't demand much. Just pay 100,000 Blue Star coins in compensation, and we'll drop the charges. Zhang Qi gave the lawyer a thumbs up, grinning like a predator. My father was trembling with fury, while Zhang Lan looked like she was about to collapse. 100,000 coins? Even if they sold the house, they wouldn't have enough. Suddenly, I started laughing. It was a loud, cold sound that echoed through the hospital room. Everyone stared at me, confused. What's so funny, kid? The lawyer snapped. Nothing, I said, my eyes locking onto his. I just realized you've got a great business model here. You beat a man half to death, and then you get paid 100,000 for it. It's genius. Zhang Qi's face twisted. Are you paying up, or do you want to go to jail? Pick one. I pick the business model, I said. It's such a good deal, I think I'll try it myself. Before he could blink, I lunged. My speed and power were now at the level of a rank 2 martial artist. A rank 4 body refiner like Zhang Qi stood no chance. My fist connected squarely with his face. The impact sounded like a wet thud. Zhang Qi flew backward, crashing into his bodyguards. Young master, the guards yelled, finally snapping out of their shock and stepping between us. Zhang Qi lay on the floor, stars dancing in his eyes. That one punch had given him a massive concussion. You're dead. You're so dead, the lawyer screamed, his voice cracking with terror. Assaulting someone in the city is a felony. I didn't let him finish. I swung my leg in a high kick, sending the lawyer flying through the air until he landed hard right on top of Zhang Qi. Call my father. Zhang Qi wheezed, gasping for air under the lawyer's weight. Call the security bureau. One of the bodyguards scrambled out of the room to make the call. I didn't stop him. As a registered martial artist, I wasn't under the jurisdiction of the Standard Security Bureau anyway. I answered only to the Martial Arts Alliance. I turned back to Zhang Qi. My father's bruises flashed in my mind. I wasn't done. I wanted to pay him back 10 times over. I took a slow step forward. Zhang Qi's smugness was gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated fear. You slap. I hit him so hard his cheeks swelled instantly. Why aren't you helping me? He screamed at his guards. I pay you to stand there like statues. The bodyguards didn't move. They weren't stupid. They could feel the aura coming off me. They were used to bullying civilians, but they wouldn't dare lift a finger against a martial artist. I grabbed Zhang Qi by the collar, lifted him up, and drove my fist into his chest. I heard the satisfying crack of his ribs snapping. Xiaofeng, stop! Zhang Lan cried, grabbing my arm, tears streaming down her face. You'll go to prison. Don't worry, Mom, I said calmly. The only people going to prison are them. I kicked Zhang Qi one last time, sending him tumbling across the floor. I wanted to do more, but I didn't want my aunt to see any more violence. Xiaofeng, when did you get so strong? My father asked from the bed. He was an old soldier. He could see the difference. Are you a genius? I had a breakthrough with the school's cultivation techniques. I lied easily. My strength improved a lot. My father looked torn between pride and terror. He was happy I was strong, but he was certain I had just ruined my life by attacking a rich man's son. A few minutes later, the hallway erupted with noise. A group of men burst into the room. Leading them was a man in an expensive leather coat with a protruding belly, Zhang Bingchun, a wealthy merchant and Zhang Qi's father. Dad, tell Officer Li to arrest him. Zhang Qi shrieked from the floor. Zhang Bingchun saw his son's broken state and turned purple with rage. Officer Li, look at this. He attacked my son in broad daylight. We have witnesses and security footage. Arrest him now. Officer Li Ming, the captain of this district's security detail and a rank 1 martial artist himself, nodded solemnly. Don't worry, Mr. Zhang. I'll handle this. He looked at me, his eyes cold. Kid, you know how many years you'll get for this? Public assault resulting in severe injury carries a 10-year sentence. Or, we could just send you to the monster frontline. Send him to the frontline. Zhang Qi screamed. Let the monsters tear him apart. Li Ming smiled thinly and stepped toward me. It was obvious he was in their pocket. If I were a normal student, I'd be finished. Did you hit him? Li Ming asked, his voice booming. It wasn't him. I did it, my father shouted, struggling to sit up. I gently pushed my father back down. Li Ming laughed. You? You can barely stand. Don't play games with me. I hit him, I said, stepping forward. But only after they came here to extort us. And they were the ones who attacked my father first. Li Ming acted like he hadn't heard a word. Good. You confessed. Men, cuff him. 2 officers moved toward me, reaching for their shackles. I felt a cold smile touch my lips. As they got close, I let my energy explode. A massive wave of martial pressure erupted from my body, filling the small room like a physical weight. The 2 officers froze in their tracks, their faces turning pale. Li Ming's eyes widened, his jaw dropping. Martial artist pressure? Li Ming knew every martial artist in Qinyan City. He had done his homework before coming here. According to his files, I was just a student at second high school with 0 background. He probably figured I was just some lucky kid who had recently broken through and hadn't registered with the association yet. If I wasn't registered, I was still under his jurisdiction. Chu Feng, Li Ming barked, his voice regaining its edge. Are you resisting arrest? Even if you have the strength of a martial artist, resisting is a major crime. I suggest you come quietly. He started walking toward me. He had been a rank 1 martial artist for years, and he clearly didn't think much of a teenager who had just hit a breakthrough. When I didn't answer, he lunged. He wanted to end this in one move. He got close, but I was faster. My fist connected squarely with his face. Bang! Li Ming staggered back 3 steps, his head spinning. You? He gasped, stars dancing in his eyes. Your security detail colludes with businessmen to frame civilians, I said, my voice cold and sharp. Is there no law left in this world? I reached into my pocket and pulled out my martial artist certificate. I slammed it right in front of his face. Name, Chu Feng. Status, rank 1 martial artist. Test grade, S rank. Li Ming froze. It was like a bucket of ice water had been poured down his spine. He realized he had just kicked a wall made of solid steel. Officer Li, Zhang Bingchun called out, not seeing the certificate from where he stood. This brat just attacked you. Should I call Director Du and get more men down here? Li Ming's face turned a sickly shade of gray. An S-rank genius wasn't someone he could afford to offend. Forget Director Du, Li Ming muttered, his voice trembling. He looked at the younger Zhang brother, Zhang Mingyang, who was still groaning on the floor. Zhang Mingyang, tell me exactly what happened. Every detail. Zhang Bingchuan's heart skipped a beat. He could tell the wind had shifted. What's there to say? Zhang Mingyang whined. Look at me. Just get someone to heal me first. Li Ming was trapped. Zhang Mingyang's older brother, Zhang Qi, was rumored to be close to breaking through to rank 2. But the kid in front of him was an S-rank genius. In the long run, an S-rank talent had the potential to become a grandmaster. The choice was obvious. Zhang Mingyang, cooperate with the investigation immediately. Li Ming roared. The brat flinched, terrified by the sudden change in tone. Sensing disaster, Zhang Bingchun hurried out of the room to call his eldest son, Zhang Qi. Something's wrong with your brother's situation, Zhang Bingchun whispered urgently into the phone. I thought you sent Li Ming to handle it. Zhang Qi was already in a foul mood after losing to me at school. He was at the gym, trying to train off his frustration. What's the problem? The kid is just a new martial artist. Li Ming should be able to handle a rookie. His name is Chu Feng, his father said. There was a long, dead silence on the other end of the line. Zhang Qi's heart sank. He knew exactly who I was. He knew about my S-rank status, and more importantly, he knew about my connection to Elder Qin. He wouldn't touch Elder Qin's favorites even if he had 100 lives to lose. Try to settle this with money, Zhang Qi finally said, his voice hollow. If he won't take it, Tell Ming Yang to confess. Tell him to turn himself in. What? Zhang Bingchun gasped. Qi, he's your brother. Use your connections. Connections? Zhang Qi snapped. What connection is bigger than Elder Qin? I'm not getting involved in this. I'm not letting him drag me down with him. The line went dead. Zhang Bingchun stood there, stunned, clutching his phone. When he walked back into the room, Li Ming was already acting like a model officer. Mr. Zhang, Li Ming said officially. The investigation is clear. Your son provoked a fight, assaulted a civilian, and then attempted extortion. These are serious crimes. We are taking him into custody. Zhang Bingchun knew he was losing, but he made one last desperate play. Officer Li, give me a moment alone with young Chu Feng. Li Ming had taken plenty of bribes from the Zhang family in the past, so he nodded and stepped back. Chu Feng, Zhang Bingchun said, his voice pleading. My son is a fool. I apologize for everything. If you drop the charges, I'll give you 1 million blue star coins. My parents, Zhang Lan and Chu Tianchuan, gasped. That was a life-changing amount of money. I didn't blink. No, Zhang Bingchun corrected himself quickly. 5 million. Just don't ask to have him sent to the monster frontline. Let him serve a few years in a regular prison. My father looked at me, his voice trembling. Xiaofeng, maybe we should consider it. Your sister's medical bills. I knew he was thinking about my sister. She needed the money. But I looked Zhang Bingchun straight in the eye. You could give me 100 million, I said coldly. He's going to the front line. Zhang Bingchun's face went dark. He was powerless. His greatest card, his eldest son, had already abandoned them. Dad, I don't want to go to the front line. The monsters will eat me. Call my brother. Zhang Mingyang wailed. In this world, serious criminals weren't sent to cozy cells. They were sent to the front to dig trenches or act as cannon fodder. The only way out was if the plaintiff agreed to a settlement. I wasn't agreeing to anything. They touched my family. Now, they had to pay. Zhang Bingchun lost it. He turned and slapped his younger son across the face. Shut up. Just go with Officer Li and confess everything. He turned and walked away, defeated. Zhang Mingyang was dragged out, screaming and crying, as the police threw him into the back of the van. Mr. Chu, Li Ming said, bowing slightly to me before leaving. I'll process this immediately. I'll keep you updated. Once the room was empty, my mother threw her arms around me, sobbing. I was so scared, Feng. I thought they were going to take you away. What are you crying for? My father said, though his own eyes were red. He's fine. Everything is fine now. He looked at me, curious. Feng, are you really a registered martial artist? I nodded. I couldn't tell them about the system, so I made up a story. I told them my teacher, Su Quan, had given me a cultivation manual, and I had experienced a sudden moment of enlightenment while practicing. It was a simple lie, but for the first time in a long time, my family felt safe. In this world, there are 2 ways to grow stronger. Most people take the slow path, grinding day after day, relying entirely on their natural-born talent. But there's another way, a rare, sudden moment of enlightenment called epiphany. It doesn't matter how much talent you have. Anyone has a tiny chance to experience it. But that chance is 1 in 10,000. My mother, Zhang Lan, looked at me with tears in her eyes. She finally believed I had a future, but then her face clouded with worry. She asked if being a martial artist was dangerous, having heard they had to go on life-threatening missions every year. I told her not to worry. I promised I would be careful, but right now, we had a bigger priority. We had to go see Sister Warner. My mother nodded, her expression turning somber again. By the time we reached the hospital, the news of what I'd done had already spread. The hospital leadership was waiting for us at the door. A man named Meng Hetong, the vice principal of the hospital, hurried forward the moment he saw me. Mr. Chu, you're Chu Warner's family, right? He asked, sounding urgent. I nodded and asked him how she was doing. His face went pale. He explained that since Warner had been admitted, her vitals were crashing. Her heart rate was below 10 beats per minute. Her breathing had slowed to 5 breaths a minute, and her body temperature had plummeted to only 20 degrees Celsius. I felt a surge of cold fury. If anything happened to her, I would make sure every single member of the Zhang family was buried with her. I asked how this was possible. Meng Hetong wiped sweat from his forehead, admitting that the hospital had never seen anything like it. It defied medical logic. However, He told me not to panic just yet. Her vitals, though incredibly low, were perfectly stable. She wasn't in immediate danger of dying. I realized then that ordinary doctors couldn't help her. Warner had been sickly ever since my father, Chu Tianchuan, brought her home years ago. We had seen countless doctors, and none of them ever found a cause. It seemed seeing my father get beaten had triggered something deep inside her. I thought of Elder Qin. He was a man of immense status and knowledge. Maybe he would have an answer. Because I was now a martial artist, the hospital moved Warner to a high-end ward reserved for the families of the elite. It was a luxury facility, and for me, it was completely free. After checking on her, I pulled out the contact information Elder Qin had given me. Chu Feng, are you interested in the Genius Tournament? Elder Qin's voice was warm over the phone. I told him I would definitely participate in the qualifiers, but I needed to see him immediately. I needed his help. He agreed without hesitation and gave me an address. I hung up, my gaze hardening. I knew that asking for a favor meant I had to prove my worth. Elder Qin valued my potential above all else. If I wanted his full support, I had to show him exactly what I was capable of. I went to a secluded corner of a local park and sat on the ground. I pulled out the manual I had extorted from the principal, the second stage of the chaos body refining technique. For a normal person, mastering this stage would take 5 to 10 years and would increase their blood chi by 700 to 1200 points. I opened my system panel. Name, Chu Feng. Realm, Martial Artist Level 1. Blood chi, 1300. Talent, Level 1. Epiphany points, 320. The system notified me that I could use 200 points to trigger an epiphany for the second stage of the manual. I didn't hesitate. I clicked yes and began reading the manual. As I turned the pages, the notifications flashed rapidly. Blood chi plus 100, plus another 100, and another. By the time I reached the last page, the system chimed. I had completely mastered the second stage. My blood chi had increased by a total of 1500 points. I stood up and took a long breath. My muscles felt tight, coiled like springs, ready to explode with power. My new stats were staggering. My blood chi was now at 2,800, pushing me straight into the realm of a level 2 martial artist. It took ordinary people 10 years to gain 1,200 points. It took me a few minutes to gain 1,500. But then, the system gave me a warning. It told me that because my talent level was only level 1, the gains from my epiphany were actually lower than they could be. My low talent was holding me back. I asked the system how to upgrade my talent. It mentioned things like marrow-cleansing liquids or achievement rewards, but it wouldn't tell me where to find them. I had never heard of such a legendary item. If it existed, it was likely priceless. I pushed the thought aside. I had to see Elder Qin. The next day, I arrived at a luxury villa district. 2 men in suits blocked my path until I verified my identity. When I walked into the hall, Elder Qin looked at me and froze. Chu Feng, it's only been a day, and your blood chi has grown this much? I had done this on purpose, letting my aura flare slightly. I told him I had gained some insight while practicing the chaos technique last night. A smile spread across his face. He had originally seen me as a standard genius, but now, his estimation of me skyrocketed. I got straight to the point and told him about Warner's condition. To my surprise, Elder Qin's face turned bright red with excitement. He grabbed my arm, his voice shaking. Where is she? Take me to her now. I hesitated, startled by his intensity. He realized he was overstepping and took a breath to calm down. I'm sorry, I lost my composure, he said. But Chu Feng, your sister might not be sick at all. She might be awakening a martial talent. He explained that while standard talents go up to S-class, there are rare attribute talents: wind, fire, lightning, water. These are 1 in a million. They usually trigger after a period of intense emotional stress. Warner falling into a coma after seeing my father attacked fit the pattern perfectly. If she was awakening an attribute, her talent was at least SS class. Qingyun City hadn't seen an awakened talent in over a decade. No wonder Elder Qin was so shaken. My sister, Warner, had always been frail and sickly. The idea of her awakening a martial talent seemed impossible, yet here we were. Elder Qin explained that awakening an attribute talent required a massive amount of physical energy. If the body couldn't keep up, it entered a state called turtle breath. It was a survival mechanism where life signs dropped to a minimum, causing a deep coma. We didn't waste a second. We jumped into Elder Chin's car. His driver clearly wasn't an ordinary man. A 20-minute trip across the city took us exactly 8.5 minutes. I spent the entire ride urging him to go faster, my heart hammering against my ribs. When we burst into the hospital room, Warner was lying there, perfectly still. Her skin was so pale it was almost translucent. Elder Chin checked her pulse and looked at the monitors. Her heart rate and breathing were still dropping. He told me her talent was either too high or her body was too weak to support the transformation. If we didn't act now, she would die. The only way to save her was star source stones. Elder Chin shouted for his driver to go fetch 10 high-grade stones, but I didn't have time to wait. I reached into my bag and pulled out the 3 high-grade stones I had received from my S-rank certification. I gently pried Warner's mouth open and placed the first stone inside. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The stone erupted in a flash of white light and turned completely transparent. The energy had been vacuumed out of it. Elder Chin's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He said 3 stones wouldn't be enough. I fed her the remaining 2. Again, the light flashed, and the energy vanished instantly. Her color started to return, but she was still unconscious. Elder Chin called for 30 more stones, but I stopped him. I pretended to reach into my backpack, but I actually pulled 3 top-grade star source stones from my system storage. These were deep purple, glowing with an intense, crystalline light. Elder Chin gasped. A single top-grade stone was worth 10 high-grade ones, and they were practically impossible to buy with money. He looked at me like I was a mystery he couldn't solve. I didn't care about his suspicions. I just wanted my sister back. I fed her the purple stones one by one. The first 3 were drained in an instant. It wasn't until the 4th stone that the absorption speed finally slowed down. By the time she finished half of the 5th stone, the color of the crystal stopped changing. Her skin turned from deathly pale to a healthy, rosy glow. Elder Chin stood there, his world clearly shattered. He whispered that this had to be an SSS class talent. He had only ever read about such people in secret files from the District 8 Genius Trials. He had never seen one in the flesh. Warner's long eyelashes fluttered. She opened her eyes. I rushed forward and grabbed her hands, my voice thick with emotion. But as she looked at me, her gaze turned incredibly sharp. Suddenly, the air in the room grew heavy. A massive, invisible pressure slammed into us. I felt like I was pinned under a mountain, unable to move a muscle. Even Elder Chin, a peak grandmaster, looked strained. Then, Warner recognized me. The pressure vanished instantly. She asked me where we were and if Dad was okay. I told her everything was fine and that I had taken care of the people who hurt him. Elder Chin was trembling, his face pale. He muttered something about space attribute. He realized the pressure she just exerted was a legendary power that had only appeared in ancient texts. He looked at my sister as if she were a goddess. I called my parents, and they rushed to the room. My mother, Zhang Lan, broke down in tears, hugging Warner. My father, Chu Tianchuan, told her that I was a certified martial artist now and that we were moving. I explained that the Alliance had given me a luxury villa as a reward. No more cramped apartments. We were finally going to have a real home. We were all laughing and talking, momentarily forgetting the world outside. But then, the sky through the window turned pitch black. The clouds swirled violently, and a dark shadow streaked across the horizon toward us. I stood up, my body tensed for a fight. Elder Chin's face went white. He told us it was a golden body realm expert flying through the air. The man was covered in a black aura, a signature of the Yama Palace. They were the public enemies of the Human Alliance, traitors who had sided with the monsters. The expert wasn't here for me. He had sensed the massive surge of space energy when Warner woke up. The Yama Palace was here to kidnap my sister. The Yama Palace expert was a predator, and he knew exactly what he was doing. He realized Qingyun City didn't have a single golden body realm expert to stop him. The strongest people here were 2 grandmasters and Elder Chin, who was only at the peak of the master realm. If this monster reached us, the future of humanity would be snuffed out before it even began. Elder Chin's face was filled with despair. But then, a streak of golden light appeared in the distance, chasing the dark shadow. Another golden body expert was coming. Suddenly, Elder Qin's smart glasses flashed red. An emergency meeting was being broadcast to every master-level martial artist in the city. A booming voice echoed through the room. "I am Luo San, a Golden Body Realm warrior," the voice announced. "I am pursuing a Yama Palace traitor. If he enters the city, the consequences will be worse than the destruction of Qingyun itself. I order all masters and grandmasters to intercept him. Buy me time. You will likely die, but your sacrifice will ensure the survival of the human alliance." I felt a chill run down my spine. Would people really throw their lives away just because of a command? "Grandmaster Pei Hu, received. Intercepting now," a voice crackled through the glasses. "Grandmaster Li Qingyuan, received. Master Zhang, received." My blood boiled. They didn't hesitate. Elder Qin's gentle demeanor vanished, replaced by a sharp, lethal intensity. He looked 20 years younger, his eyes burning with a resolve to die for the cause. "Get out of here now," Elder Qin barked at us. "It's too dangerous." I told my parents to run, but I stayed behind. I couldn't leave Warner. Outside the window, I saw a figure leap into the sky, clashing with the black shadow. A sickening thud echoed through the glasses. Grandmaster Pei, who had fallen. He only managed to buy 3 seconds. The gap between a grandmaster and a golden body expert was an unbridgeable ocean. The black shadow accelerated again. Luo's sun was closing in, only 100 meters away, but he needed one more distraction to catch him. "I can't get a lock on his flight path," someone screamed over the comms. Just then, a massive war eagle dove from the top of a skyscraper. Standing on its back was an old man with a long white beard, gripping a heavy sword. It was Li Qingyuan. Elder Qin gripped his fists, his eyes wet. He and Li were old friends. "Curse you," the Yama Palace expert hissed. He was trapped. He had sensed a space attribute genius and thought he could sneak in, kill her, and vanish. Now, he was in a dead end. Luo's sun was stronger than him and gaining fast. The traitor realized he wouldn't survive, so he decided to trade his life for my sister's. He tapped his chest in a strange pattern, coughing up a mouthful of black blood. His speed tripled instantly, a forbidden technique. He blurred past the war eagle, ignoring everyone else, and aimed himself straight at our hospital room like a guided missile. "That beast is going for a kill strike," Elder Qin screamed, throwing himself out the window to act as a final human shield. The shadow was like a bullet. It didn't even bother fighting Elder Qin. It just swerved around him and smashed toward our ward. I lunged forward, throwing my arms around Warner to shield her with my own body. "Brother, run," Warner cried, her voice trembling. "He wants me." She tried to summon her space domain again, but she was drained. She was too weak. I felt a surge of frustration. If we lived through this, I vowed to become so strong that no one could ever threaten us again. But right now, there was nowhere to run. If he hit this building, no one would survive. Warner closed her eyes, trying to force one last bit of energy. The shadow burst through the wall, the sheer wind pressure shattering every window in the room. Luo Sen's golden form was only a few hundred meters away, but he was too late. Then, the air in the center of the room twisted. A spatial vortex, 2 meters high, tore open right in front of us. I looked at Warner, thinking she had done it, but she shook her head. She was just as shocked as I was. Time seemed to freeze. A hand reached out from the vortex. It was a woman's hand, white as jade, skin so perfect it looked like porcelain. The Yama Palace expert hit an invisible wall midair. He froze, unable to move even an inch. Luo's sun reached the doorway a second later and also slammed into an invisible barrier, stuck in place. "How is this possible?" the traitor gasped, his eyes wide with terror. The jade hand flicked its middle finger against its thumb, a casual gesture. Snap! Without a sound, the golden body expert from the Yama Palace disintegrated into fine dust. He didn't just die, he vanished from existence. Luo's sun watched, his face pale. Even a peak war god couldn't do something like that. This was beyond human understanding. As the dust settled, a foot stepped out of the vortex. A woman in a flowing red dress emerged. She was so radiant, so blindingly bright, that it was hard to even look at her face. The pressure on the room lifted, and Luo's sun collapsed to his knees. "I greet the great senior," Luo's sun stammered, bowing his head to the floor. The woman ignored him. She walked straight to Warner and placed a hand on her forehead. "Dual peak talents in time and space," she whispered. Her voice sounded like bells. I didn't expect a genius of this level to be born in such a remote corner of the galaxy. It was worth sacrificing centuries of cultivation to tear through space to get here. My heart hammered against my ribs. She wasn't from our world. She was from a higher civilization, and she had come for my sister. The woman in red ignored everyone else in the room. Her eyes were fixed on Warner, her fingers still resting on my sister's wrist. She frowned slightly, sensing something deep within. "So many restrictions placed on your body," she murmured. "If you hadn't met me, your talent would have been completely wasted. You're coming with me. You will be my disciple. One day, you will be a pillar of strength for all of humanity." My heart skipped a beat. She wanted to take Warner away. I took a step forward, keeping my voice steady despite the overwhelming pressure. "Senior," I said, meeting her gaze. "Where exactly are you taking my sister?" The woman paused, looking at me with a hint of surprise. Most people couldn't even move in her presence, let alone speak. She studied me for a long moment, her eyes narrowing as if trying to peer through a thick fog. A flicker of genuine shock crossed her face. She couldn't see through me. "You're an interesting little fellow," she said, though she quickly turned her attention back to Warner. "Let's go. This spatial vortex won't stay open forever." Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that felt impossible to defy. Luo's son and old Qin stayed bowed, too terrified to even breathe. I was the only one standing between her and my sister. I had just awakened my system. We were supposed to finally live a good life together. The thought of her leaving now was a bitter pill to swallow. But I wasn't a fool. This woman was powerful beyond belief. If Warner stayed with me, she'd be a target. If she went with her, her potential would be limitless. I was strong, but I wasn't ready to protect her from the entire galaxy yet. The woman, who called herself Hong Ling, saw Warner's hesitation. "I don't like forcing people," Hong Ling said softly. "But you don't belong to this world, Warner. Don't you want to know the truth about your heritage?" Warner froze. I could see the conflict in her eyes. Ever since her talent awakened, she had been seeing fragments of memories that weren't her own. She wanted answers. She looked at me, then looked back at the woman and shook her head. "I don't want to go," Warner whispered. "I want to stay with my family." Hong Ling didn't get angry. Instead, she looked at me again. "Young man, you seem like a smart person," she said. "Right now, your sister is like a child carrying a mountain of gold through a crowded market. If another situation like today happens, do you really think you can protect her?" The words hit me like a physical blow. She was right. Warner's talent was too dangerous for this world. Taking her away was the only way to keep her safe. "Warner," I said, turning to my sister. "The senior is right. You should go with her." Warner looked at me, stunned. She knew what this meant. If she stepped through that portal, she might never see us again. She shook her head fiercely, her loyalty to us outweighing her own future. "Don't worry about us," I said, my voice low but firm. "From this day on, I will never stop growing stronger. I don't care if you're across the stars or in the deepest reaches of the universe. I will find you. I will bring you back to Blue Star, and our family will be together again." Hong Ling gave me a sidelong glance, a faint, amused smile playing on her lips. She probably thought I was dreaming. To her, the distance I'd have to travel was impossible for a human. But Warner saw the look in my eyes. She saw the absolute conviction there. If I hadn't arrived in time today, she would have died, Hong Ling added, sensing Warner's resolve softening. "Do you want to stay here just to watch her lose her life?" Warner looked down, her hands trembling. She finally looked up and nodded. "I'll go with you." Hong Ling smiled. "Good, but I need to see my parents first," Warner insisted. "Fine. There are only a few minutes left." "Where are they?" Old Qin moved instantly, fetching my parents, Chu Tianchuan and Zhang Lan, from nearby. When they arrived and realized what was happening, the room filled with the sound of muffled sobs. My mother's eyes were blood-red from crying. "Mom, Dad, you'll always be my parents," Warner cried, throwing her arms around them. "As long as I'm alive, I'll find a way back to you." They held each other for what felt like a second and an eternity. Then, Juana stepped toward me. She pressed a green jade pendant into my hand, the trinket she had owned since she was a baby. "Take this, phone," she whispered. I gripped the pendant tight. I didn't cry. I couldn't afford to. I watched her, my fists clenched so hard my knuckles turned white. I was weak. Compared to this woman in red, I was nothing. I needed to be stronger. Much stronger. "It's time," Hong Ling said, pulling Wanner toward the swirling vortex. "Wait," I shouted. "Senior, where can I find you?" Hong Ling didn't look back as they stepped into the shimmering light. Her voice echoed through the room as the portal began to shrink. "If you want to find us, become the strongest person in this world first. Only then will you have the right to ask." Then, the vortex vanished. The room went silent. "The strongest in the world," I whispered to the empty air. My eyes burned with a new light. Luo Sun and Old Qin let out breaths they had been holding for minutes. They looked at each other, stunned. They had seen the portal and the death of the Yama Palace expert, but the rest was a blur to them. "Senior Luo Sun, what just—" Old Qin started. "Silence," Luo Sun snapped. He was younger than Old Qin, but as a higher-ranked martial artist, his word was law. "Not a single word of what happened here leaves this room. Do you understand?" Old Qin wiped the sweat from his forehead and nodded frantically. Knowing too much was a death sentence. Luo Sin opened his communication channel. "The Yama Palace member has been eliminated. The emergency meeting is adjourned. Great Grandmaster Pei, who died a hero's death, the Alliance will honor him as a martyr. Grandmaster Li Qingyuan and Qin Fengming will be commended for their service." He glanced at my parents, who were still collapsed on the floor in grief. He didn't disturb them, simply telling us to cooperate with the follow-up investigation before he hurried away. 3 days passed. I stayed locked in my room the entire time. My mother was sick with worry, but my father told her to leave me be. He knew I was processing everything in my own way. Inside that room, I wasn't just grieving. I was diving deep into my system and the techniques I had realized during the fight. I was obsessed. I had a path now. I had a goal that reached beyond this planet. On the morning of the 4th day, I finally opened my door. My mother quickly hid her sad expression, forcing a smile for me. I stepped out, dressed in a formal black suit, my expression cold and focused. The hunt for strength had truly begun. My expression was solemn as I prepared to leave. My mother, Zhang Lan, started to ask if I wanted to eat, but I cut her off. I told my parents I was heading out to attend Grandmaster Pei, whose memorial service. My father, Chu Tianchuan, sighed. He said he wanted to go too, but the service was strictly for martial artists. He reminded me that if the Grandmaster hadn't sacrificed his life to hold back the enemy, our entire family would be dead. I didn't say much. I just walked out the door. I sat in the back of a taxi heading toward the funeral hall. In my hand, I gripped a bright green jade pendant. I hung it around my neck, letting it rest cold against my chest. Pei Hu's memorial was the biggest event in Qingyun City in years. Even the golden body rank expert, Luo San, was there. He had stayed in the city for 3 days specifically for this. All the heavy hitters were present, from Li Qingyuan to Old Qin. I waited in line for over 3 hours before it was finally my turn to pay my respects. I looked at the portrait of Pei Hu hanging high above the altar. I bowed deeply. I had never met this man, but he was the reason my parents were still breathing. I looked over at his family. They were collapsed in grief, weeping inconsolably. Among them was a young boy, maybe 3 or 4 years old, running around with a confused look on his face. He looked just like the man in the portrait. He was Pei Hu's youngest son, too small to understand that his father was never coming back. I made a silent promise right then. Once I became powerful enough, I would return to repay this family in full. As I walked away from the altar, I heard a voice filled with irritation. It was a teenager, about 16 or 17, complaining to an old man behind him. He was angry that his father had forced him to attend a funeral for a dead nobody during such a critical training period. He said it was bad luck and a waste of time. I frowned and looked toward the source. I recognized him immediately. It was Wang Liang, the top-ranked martial arts genius from Qingyun High School No. 1. Every student in the city knew his name. He was always at the top of the rankings, but clearly, his character didn't match his talent. Suddenly, I heard a shout. Wang Liang had grabbed the young boy, Pei Xiaobao, by the collar and hoisted him into the air. The kid had been playing and made a face at him. Wang Liang called him a brat and threatened to kick him to death. A servant rushed over, begging him to put the boy down. Wang Liang noticed the white mourning cloth on the boy's sleeve and laughed. He mocked the kid, saying it made sense he had no manners since his father was dead. He let go, letting the boy fall. I moved like a shadow, catching the child before he hit the ground. The boy started crying, screaming that his dad was a great grandmaster. Wang Liang just grinned, finding joy in the child's pain. He pointed at me and told the kid to ask me if his dad was dead. I felt a cold rage bubbling in my gut. If this wasn't a funeral, I would have buried him right there. I glared at Wang Liang with eyes like ice. He actually flinched, a flicker of fear crossing his face for a split second. I didn't waste words on him. I turned to the boy instead. I told him his father hadn't died, but had just gone to a very far place and wouldn't be back for a long time. The boy stopped crying. I asked his name, and he told me it was Pei Xiaobao. I handed him back to his family and left, burning Wang Liang's face into my memory. When I got home, I ate 3 bowls of rice. My parents watched me, finally looking relieved that I was acting like myself again. I put my chopsticks down and told them we were moving. The Martial Arts Alliance had given me a luxury high-level apartment for my promotion. I wanted us to move immediately. The new place had everything, including a private training room where I could focus without distractions. My parents agreed instantly. They were just happy to get me away from the memories of the old house. But I wasn't done. I told my mother to quit her job. I wanted both of them to start practicing martial arts. They were stunned. They thought they were too old. I explained that I didn't need them to become warriors. I wanted them to use the gentle path, meditation and pills, just to increase their blood qi. In this world, regular people live to 150, but even a basic martial artist could reach 200. My mother was still hesitant, worried about the cost and the effort. I looked them both in the eye. I told them that if they ever wanted to see my sister, Chu Wanner, again, they had to stay alive. The people who took her weren't from this world. They were from somewhere far beyond our understanding. To bring her back, we needed time. My father's eyes lit up. He had never truly given up on the martial path. He agreed on the spot. I smiled, reassuring my mother that there was no pressure to pass exams or fight. We had the resources now. The hunt for strength was no longer just about me. It was about keeping my family together forever. We only packed 2 suitcases. The old house stayed exactly as it was. We didn't sell it. I wanted us to keep it as a memory of where we started. The new place was a masterpiece. 6 bedrooms, a professional training room, a study, a massive kitchen, and a living area that felt like a palace. It was over 400 square meters of pure luxury. I realized then why everyone fought so hard to become a martial artist. This house alone was enough to tempt anyone. My mother, Zhang Lan, looked at the polished floors and high ceilings with wide eyes. She whispered that she couldn't believe this was for us. My father, Chu Tianchuan, just beamed with pride. He told her that ordinary martial artists didn't get this treatment. I was an S-class certified genius. In a city like Qingyun, someone like me only appeared once every few decades. I left them to explore and headed straight for the training room. It was nearly 100 square meters on its own, packed with every testing instrument imaginable. I felt a surge of satisfaction as I pulled up my system interface. Name, Chu Feng. Realm, Martial Artist, Level 2. Blood Qi, 2,800 points. Talent, Level 1 Insight. Resources, 120 Insight points, 5 top-grade Star Source stones, 10 Physique pills, for million Blue Star coins. 120 Insight points wasn't enough. If I wanted to get stronger faster, I needed more. Insight was my shortcut to mastering any technique. I asked the system if there were any available tasks. A notification popped up immediately. A new task: participate in the 5 grade exams and become the top scorer in Qingyun City. The reward was 500 insight points. I smiled. I was already planning to take that top spot. Now, I had an even better reason to crush the competition. The exams were only half a month away. I needed to maximize my strength. I pulled out a physique pill. These were the most direct way for a martial artist to boost their blood qi, but they were rare and expensive. Usually, one pill could add 50 to 100 points of blood qi, but the body needed weeks to absorb it properly. If you took too many too fast, the energy became toxic. I popped the first pill into my mouth. Ding. First time consuming a physique pill. Double insight effect triggered. Blood chi increased by 200 points. I froze. I didn't know the system could apply insight to medicine. While others spent a month slowly digesting a single pill, I had absorbed it instantly and gotten double the results. I didn't hesitate. I swallowed the second one. Insight successful. Blood chi increased by 100 points. I took a third, then a fourth. By the time I reached the sixth pill, the notification changed. The gain dropped to 50 points. It seemed even with my system, there was a limit. The effectiveness started to have once my body reached a saturation point. I didn't realize that for normal people, the effectiveness dropped after the very first pill. My system had already pushed me far beyond the limit. I tucked the remaining 4 pills away for later. I checked my status again. My blood chi had jumped to 3,450 points. I had broken through to level 3 martial artist in less than 30 minutes. Since I couldn't push my blood chi any higher for now, I decided to head to the Martial Arts Alliance Mall. The exams weren't just about raw power, there was a combat portion too. Most students only focused on their chi levels to get into average universities. But the elite schools only cared about those who could actually fight. To stand out, I needed a martial technique. The Alliance Mall sat right in the heart of the city. The first floor was crowded with people buying basic pills. A salesman tried to stop me, pushing top-grade pills that he claimed would guarantee me a spot in a good school. I just shook my head. I was looking for something for my parents. After a quick lap, I had the numbers. Basic pills like spring nurturing or chi-gathering pills cost 5,000 coins each. To get a normal person to level 3 body refining, they'd need about 30 pills. That was nearly 200,000 coins. It was a fortune for a regular family, but for me, it was pocket change. I moved to the 3rd floor, where the real techniques were kept. A man in a suit blocked my path at the entrance, telling me kids weren't allowed. I didn't argue. I just handed him my martial artist certificate. He stared at it, his face turning pale as I walked past him into the hall. A polite saleswoman approached me. She was dressed sharply and had a professional smile. I told her I needed a combat technique suitable for a martial artist. She led me to a display of blue-bound books with gold-trimmed edges. There was the mountain cleaving palm, a C-class technique that could boost palm strength by 50%. Price, 2 million. Then the white tiger punch, which added a roar to the strike to intimidate enemies. Price, 3 million. C-class was the standard for my level. B-class was far too expensive for me right now. Even a 30% boost was massive. If I had 1,000 pounds of force, the technique turned it into 1,300. The saleswoman pointed toward the white tiger punch. She mentioned that a young master from the Wang family, Wang Liang, had recently bought it. I kept my face neutral, but I noted the name. So, Wang Liang had broken through and was already training in techniques. I asked the system how many points I needed to master the white tiger punch. 200 points. Every technique on the shelf required at least 150. I didn't have enough. Is there anything else? I asked. She looked surprised. She explained that anything lower was for the body refining stage and wouldn't offer much of a boost to a true martial artist. As far as she was concerned, everything I needed was already right in front of me. I asked the saleswoman if there was anything else. She hesitated, then mentioned another manual. She told me it wasn't exactly a high-level technique, but it was suitable for a martial artist to practice. She reached into the inner cabinet and pulled out a book with a plain blue cover. Unlike the others, this one had no gold trim. It wasn't hidden because it was precious, but because it was a terrible seller. It didn't even deserve a spot on the main display. The title was simple, Basic Combat Techniques for Martial Artists. It covered fist techniques, movement patterns, and basic weaponry. The actual power boost was minimal, maybe 10% at most. However, it was packed with rich combat experience. The price was 1 million credits. The saleswoman looked embarrassed as she read the description. She explained that a great master had written it to condense his lifetime of combat wisdom. I could tell she was struggling to sell it. She probably hadn't moved a single copy since she started working there. Most people avoided this book because the progress was too slow. It would take a normal person 10 or 20 years to truly absorb the benefits. They wanted immediate power boosts, not slow burn experience. But I was different. I had the system. I could reach enlightenment instantly. I asked the system for the cost. 100 insight points. I'll take it, I said firmly. The saleswoman blinked, her prepared speech dying in her throat. She hadn't expected me to be so decisive. She quickly processed the payment from my martial artist account and packaged the book. Then she asked if I needed any pills or equipment. For the upcoming university entrance exam, students weren't allowed to bring their own combat suits or weapons. Those were provided by the organizers to ensure fairness. However, recovery pills were a different story. I decided to stock up. I ordered 10 nourishing spring pills and 10 chi-gathering pills. The saleswoman was beaming now. These 2 transactions alone totaled 2 million credits. Even children from wealthy martial arts families rarely spent money this freely. While she packed the pills, I checked the prices for high-end gear. My jaw nearly dropped. A C-class combat suit cost over 2 million, and the weapons were even worse, 3 million for the cheapest one. I realized I needed to make a lot more money, but I wasn't worried. If I took the top spot in the Qingyun City exams, the rewards and scholarships from the universities would be massive. I headed back to the high-level martial artist apartments with my haul. When Zhang Lan saw the pills, her face went pale. She told me they must have cost hundreds of thousands and insisted I save the money for my own training. I lied and told her the Martial Artists Union provided them for free. I warned her to only take one a week to let the medicinal power absorb fully. Then I turned to my father, Chu Tianchuan. I handed him 4 physique pills. He gasped. He knew exactly how valuable these were. They were restricted items, hard to find even if you had the money. I told him I had already reached my limit with them, and they were useless to me now. Before he could argue, I slipped into the training room. My father was shaking with excitement. Each pill could raise his blood chi by 50 to 100 points. At his current level of 500, these 4 pills gave him a real shot at finally becoming a true martial artist. Inside the training room, I opened the basic combat manual. The system prompt appeared immediately, asking if I wanted to begin enlightenment. I didn't hesitate. As I flipped through the pages, every strike and movement felt like it was being carved into my brain. You can practice techniques 1,000 times, but real combat experience only comes from blood and sweat. But as the pages turned, I felt like I was living through 1,000 different battles. The system chimed. Enlightenment successful. My fist techniques and movement speed spiked, and I suddenly possessed the intuition of a veteran of 1,000 wars. It felt incredible. Even a peak martial artist or a grandmaster might not have seen that much combat. 10 days passed in a flash. The day of the university entrance exam finally arrived. My homeroom teacher, Su Quan, was there in a tight black tracksuit. Her athletic build drew stares from all the male students, but I walked up to her calmly. I noticed her aura had changed. I congratulated her, noting that her blood chi had finally reached the level of a martial artist. She looked at me with a mix of pride and frustration. She couldn't see through my strength at all anymore. She thanked me, admitting she wouldn't have broken through without the motivation I provided. Then she leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. She told me that for this year's combat exam, the big 3 universities were sending recruiters. Lingdu, Modu, and Baitian. These were the elite schools, far above the other top-tier universities. She warned me that while my strength was enough to get into a good school, the big 3 might be tough. It wasn't about my power, but my talent grade. I was still officially listed as grade 1. To recruiters, it would look like I had just piled on expensive pills to mask a lack of natural talent. I just nodded. I didn't care what they thought. I had the system. I told her I would just do my best and let the results speak for themselves. The exam was split into 2 parts. The first part was held in the city, testing talent grades, blood chi, strength, and speed. Over half the students would be eliminated right there. Only the top 100 would move on to the second part, the real test. The combat assessment was the real deal. Recruiters from the top 5 universities were there in person to watch us, scouting for talent. If you made it into this stage, you were almost guaranteed a spot in a key university. If you were lucky, you might even get picked by the big 3. Those elite schools hadn't sent anyone to Qingyun City in 3 years, But today, their banners were flying. I walked up to the testing machine for the strength portion. I didn't want to show my full hand yet. I threw a casual punch, barely using half my power. The screen flashed, 1,800 kilograms. A collective gasp went up from the other students. It was a high score, enough to get me into a top-tier school, but not so high that it looked impossible. In the first part of the exam, rankings didn't matter. You just had to be in the top 100 to move on. Most of the real geniuses were doing exactly what I was, hiding their true strength. Inside the organizer's analysis room, the atmosphere was electric. The recruiters were buzzing. This was a big year for martial arts. 7 students had already cleared the warrior level threshold, and several had surpassed 1,500 kilograms. They wondered if Qingyun City would finally produce a genius capable of entering the Big Three. Old Kai sat there, staring at a list with a deep frown. His mood was sour. 5 students on that list weren't even locals. They were exam migrants from other cities who had transferred here just to steal the local quotas. It was a dirty tactic, but legal. Zhongshu Wang Wenhao was even angrier. His son, Wang Liang, was supposed to be the top candidate this year. Now, these 5 outsiders had appeared out of nowhere. The weakest among them was already at the martial artist level. The situation is set. There's nothing we can do, Li Qingyun said, trying to calm them down. He was the strongest great Zhongshu in the city, but even he had no say. The alliance had sent a chief examiner named Jin Shinjing to oversee everything. These migrants had powerful backgrounds. We couldn't afford to offend them. It was obvious now why the Big Three had shown up. They weren't here for the local kids. They were here for the migrants. Don't count Chu Feng out, Old Kai muttered. He knew my real strength. Even though I was currently ranked 8th, he knew I was coasting. The top spot was held by a guy named Jiang Xinghe. His strength test hit 2,800 kilograms. He was already close to a rank 3 martial artist. It was an intimidating number. Jiang is terrifying, Wang Wenhao admitted. But don't forget Luo Qingxue in second place. She has an S-grade talent. Li Qingyun nodded. If nothing changes, Luo Qingxue will be the top scorer. S-grade talent is a different world. The Big Three are definitely here for her. The next day, the second phase began, the actual combat exam. I had coasted into the top 100 easily. Before we started, Old Kai sent me a file on the competition. 3 of the migrants were at the peak of rank 1. He warned me specifically to watch out for Jiang Xinghe and the S-grade talent, Luo Qingxue. I closed the file. I didn't care about their backgrounds or their grades. The top spot belonged to me. We gathered at the base of the Yangfeng mountain range. There were more staff members than students. Every Zhongshu in the city was there, along with the recruiters. At the very front, 3 tables sat apart from the rest. The Big Three. A figure in crimson robes stepped onto the stage. I am your chief examiner, Rong Xiaoming, he announced. Your battlefield is Yangfeng Mountain. It's been wild for years and holds tens of thousands of demonic beasts. The rules were simple. Kill beasts, earn points. A level 1 beast was worth 10 points. Level 2 was 30. Level 3 was 100. Fighting between students was strictly forbidden. After 3 days, the top 10 scorers would have one chance to challenge anyone above them to swap ranks. If you are dying, call for help, Rong Xiaoming added coldly. But calling for help means disqualification. Understood. Understood, we roared. Helicopters ferried us into the mountains, dropping us at random locations. As soon as I hit the ground, a small drone began hovering over my head. My every move was being broadcast to the giant screens back at the base. The spectators were already watching the drama unfold. One unlucky student landed right in front of a level 3 beast and had to be rescued immediately. He set the record for the fastest disqualification in history. Then, the cameras panned to me. Look at number 8, someone whispered. His luck is terrible too. I was standing in front of a level 2 beast, a giant toothed wolf. The Zhongshu who dropped me off had already flown away. The dispatchers panicked. These wolves were pack hunters. If you saw one, there were at least 4 more nearby. A rescue team was already scrambling to my coordinates. What is he doing? A recruiter shouted. He's moving toward it. I looked at the wolf. I had a long saber strapped to my back, a standard weapon I'd picked up before the drop. But for a pack of wolves, I didn't even need to draw it. I lunged forward. The wolf let out a guttural growl and lunged at my throat. I didn't flinch. I met its head with a straight punch. There was a sickening thud as my fist shattered its skull. The wolf didn't even have time to howl. It dropped dead instantly. Back at the base, the silence was deafening. Every recruiter was staring at the screen. That single punch had generated over 3,000 kilograms of force. Another genius, one of them breathed. No wonder the big three came. Feng Rue, the recruiter from Baitian University, leaned forward, his eyes sharp. Give me everything you have on Chu Feng. Now, my talent level was officially listed as rank 1. It was the lowest possible grade. Back at the base, Feng Rue's jaw dropped. He couldn't believe his eyes. A rank 1 talent producing over 3,000 kilograms of force. He muttered something about me having natural divine strength, a freakish physical gift from birth. Yi Qingyi, the recruiter from Li Du 5 universities, nodded in agreement. He figured I either had natural strength or had stumbled upon a massive stroke of luck. But Feng Rue wasn't convinced. He shook his head, claiming that while my current strength was high, my ceiling was too low because of my rank. He already looked ready to write me off. Grandmaster Mu, what do you think? Yi Qingyi turned to the recruiter from Modu 5 universities. Mu Filan was a woman, but she carried herself with a sharp, heroic aura. She was a peak grandmaster. She glanced at the others and smirked. If you all think his talent is too low, then fine. Let my school have him during the selection. Feng Rue stared at her like she was crazy. Why would she waste a precious recruitment slot on me? Their real goal was Luo Qingxue, the genius with S-rank talent. Yi Qingyi frowned. He realized Mu Filan wasn't easily fooled. He had done his homework and knew I wasn't born with this strength. A month ago, I was just a nobody at the 3rd stage of body refining. In 30 days, I had jumped to 1,800 kilograms, and now, I was hitting over 3,000. He wanted me on his shortlist, but he hadn't expected Mu Filan to have such a sharp eye. Teacher, whispered Song Yi, Mu Filan's top student. His strength is impressive, but a rank 1 student entering our school? That's never happened in history. Mu Filan didn't look away from the screen. That strike against the wolf, his speed, his angle, his footwork. It was perfect. A flawless strike. Song Yi gasped. She had never heard her teacher praise anyone like that. She wondered if it was just a fluke. Keep watching, Mu Filan said calmly. Once he kills a few more, even Feng Rue will see it. Back in the forest, the bushes rustled. 2 more giant-toothed wolves lunged out, flanking me from the front and back. Perfect, I thought. I knew these things were pack hunters. They usually moved in groups of 3 to 5. I decided right then to wipe out the whole pack. I needed the points, and more importantly, I needed the recruiters to see exactly what I could do. The 2 wolves stopped 10 meters away. They didn't attack immediately. The recruiters watching the feed realized what was happening. The wolves were waiting for reinforcements. What is number 8 waiting for? Someone shouted at the screen. Kill one now before the rest get there. A rescue plane was already circling above me, the Zhongshi inside ready to jump down and save my life. A 3rd wolf crept to my left, blocking my escape. Then a 4th appeared on my right. I was completely surrounded. He has some skill, but he's too arrogant, Feng Rue remarked. These 4 are stronger than the first one. He lacks combat experience. Mu Filan let out a sudden laugh. Feng Rue snapped his head toward her, his face flushing with anger. What's so funny, Grandmaster Mu? His combat experience is going to make your jaw hit the floor, she replied. You've met him before? Feng Rue asked, suspicious. No, first time, she smiled. Want to make a bet? If he gets out of this unscathed, give me a Tianyang pill. A Tianyang pill was a high-level treasure for fire-based cultivation. It was incredibly valuable. Unscathed? Feng Rue sneered. You underestimate the situation. Fine. If he doesn't even draw his saber and walks away without a scratch, I'll give you 3 Tianyang pills. He was raising the stakes. He was that confident I would fail. Mu Filan beamed. Deal. And if I win, your school stays away from Luo Qingxue. Feng Rue agreed instantly. He didn't believe for a second that I could fight 4 level 2 beasts empty-handed. Yi Qingyi stepped in to act as the witness, secretly pleased. If Mu Filan lost, she'd lose interest in the top candidates, making his job easier. In the forest, I stood perfectly still. I didn't call for help. I just dropped into a combat stance, The first wolf lunged. Then the other three followed suit, closing in from every direction at once. "Break!" I shouted. I ignored three of them and charged straight at the first one. The wolf flinched. It was a feint. It tried to pivot away, leaving me exposed to the other three. I twisted my body just an inch. The second wolf's claws grazed the air in front of my chest. As it passed, I hammered my fist into its belly. The beast crumpled to the ground, howling in pain. I didn't stop. I ducked under the third wolf and spun in a tight, supernatural circle. My elbow connected with the fourth wolf's skull with a sickening crack. The hardest bone in my body met the softest part of its head. It died before it hit the dirt. In an instant, two were down, one dead, one crippled. The observation room went silent. "Is that micro-level movement?" someone gasped. The room erupted. Micro-level footwork was something even some grandmasters hadn't mastered. It required hundreds of life-and-death battles to learn. How could a high school kid have that kind of experience? Feng Rue's face turned a sickly shade of gray. A student with this level of martial technique was just as valuable as an S-rank talent. "Grandmaster Feng," Iching said, twisting the knife. "I believe you owe her 3 Tianyang pills. That's about 20 million credits." Feng Rue looked like he wanted to vomit. In the forest, the remaining 2 wolves realized they were outmatched and tried to bolt. I didn't let them. I hunted them down and finished them with 2 quick punches. A notification flashed on the big screen back at base. Asterisk Chu Feng, 5 level 2 beasts killed. 150 points. Rank, 1 SD, asterisk. My name sat at the very top of the leaderboard. My name sat firmly at the top of the leaderboard. The second place student only had 3 points. Deep in a corner of Fengyang Mountain, Jiang Xinghe heard the system announcement. A dark expression clouded his face. His mission was to become the top scholar of the Qingyun exam, and he hadn't expected a formidable rival to appear so suddenly, racking up 150 points in an instant. He wondered how I had done it, but he didn't care who I was. In his mind, all the points I gathered were just gifts I was preparing for him to take later. Another person had the exact same thought. It was Wang Liang, the guy I'd run into at Pei Hu's memorial service. Even though his father had warned him about 5 powerful migrant candidates joining the exam, Wang Liang was incredibly confident. He simply viewed me as another stepping stone for the final battle. I pulled out the map provided by the organizers. If I wanted to maximize my points, the best way was to hunt social monsters, creatures that lived in groups. But I knew that wasn't as easy as it sounded. Not all monsters traveled in small packs like the great wolves. Creatures like the iron-gray lizards traveled in swarms of hundreds. No matter how much combat experience I had, I wouldn't survive being swarmed by 100 beasts at once. The map showed a herd of longhorn horses nearby. They were only level 1, but they were dangerous because of their sheer numbers. Even a small herd contained thousands. Even if I could survive entering the herd, I wouldn't gain much ground. They were located on the plains right in front of a canyon. Interestingly, the nest of a level 3 beast, the shadow lion, was also nearby. I made my decision. I would head toward the longhorn horses first. To become the top scholar, I needed the biggest opportunities. If I just mindlessly killed monsters one by one, I might make the top 10, but I'd never take first place. As I traveled toward the plains, I killed any beast that crossed my path. Meanwhile, back at the base, the observers were focused on Luo Qingxue. Her S-rank ice talent was an absolute cheat. On the big screen, she moved like a white phantom, her longsword harvesting the heads of monsters she had frozen solid. 10 level 2 beasts. 300 points, someone shouted. Everyone had briefly thought I might surpass her, but seeing her terrifying ice powers, they changed their minds. Small groups of monsters were just free points for her. After a single battle, Luo Qingxue's score rocketed back to the top of the leaderboard. She hadn't been lazy. She had just been saving her energy for high-value targets. My score sat at 210 points, dropping me to second place. A full day passed. I was still pushing toward the canyon. I realized that hunting while traveling was slowing me down too much. I stopped fighting altogether and focused entirely on speed. "Teacher, what's wrong with Chu Feng?" a student asked. "His score hasn't moved for hours. It's stuck at 210. "I can't tell either," the teacher replied. "But he's heading south. He must have a reason." By noon the next day, The rankings shifted again. Luo Qingxue held first place with 980 points, 400 points ahead of Jiang Xinghe in second. Wang Liang was fourth. I had dropped out of the top 10 entirely. My score was still 210. Luo Qingxue began to slow her pace, conserving her strength for the final ranking matches. She knew that holding first place now didn't mean she had won. The top 10 candidates would have the right to challenge her later. Finally, I reached my destination. The canyon entrance narrowed gradually, just as I had hoped. It was perfect for my plan. Looking out over the grassland, I saw the herd of longhorn horses. I did a quick count. There were at least 2,000 or 3,000 of them. That night, while other candidates were frantically hunting to boost their scores, I crept toward the nest of the shadow lions. There were 3 of them, 1 male and 2 females. It was exactly what I needed. Back at the observation deck, the recruiters finally realized what I was doing. Is his goal the shadow lions? Even if he kills all 3, that's only 300 points. It's not as efficient as just hunting regular monsters. You don't understand, another recruiter argued. If he kills these and then finds more, he might actually claw back to second place. They all leaned in, expecting a legendary battle. Instead, they watched as I lay down on the ground, closed my eyes, and fell fast asleep. What is he doing? He rubbed his eyes. He traveled for a day just to take a nap? I don't get it either, Grandmaster Mu laughed. But I like this kid's style. Some recruiters stayed up all night, waiting for me to move. They felt cheated when they realized I really was just sleeping through the night. By the third day, the scores had changed significantly. Luo Qingxue was firmly in the lead with 1,300 points. Other candidates were out before dawn, but I waited until the sun was high in the sky before I even stretched and woke up. The observers were losing patience. I sat there, casually pulling dried rations from my bag and eating breakfast like I was on a picnic. This kid is too much, a recruiter grumbled. He has top 3 talent, but 0 effort. Don't even watch him anymore. Even if he kills those lions, he won't catch up. He'll be lucky to stay in the top 10. They shifted their attention back to Luo Qingxue and Jiang Xinghe. Even Wang Liang was getting more attention than me. Once I finished my breakfast and felt 100%, I quietly scouted the shadow lion's nest. The 3 lions were snoring. This was their territory. No other beast dared to disturb them. I moved with supernatural silence, getting within 10 meters without them noticing. Since they wouldn't wake up, I picked up a stone and chucked it straight at the male lion's forehead. Just as the rock was about to hit, his eyes snapped open. Thwack! The stone bounced off his skull. The lion let out a furious, earth-shaking roar. The 2 females jumped up instantly. Their territory had been invaded, and a puny human had dared to insult them with a pebble. The male lion went berserk, opening his massive jaws and lunging at me. Back at the base, the screens flickered with my movement. Look, number 8 is finally moving. He's taking on 3 level 3 shadow lions at once. The recruiters watched the screen with bated breath. Could I really take down 3 level 3 beasts at once? Even if I just managed to escape them, my agility score would be off the charts. Some said that even if I didn't make the top 10, their schools would recruit me just for my movement techniques. But then, I did something that made everyone's jaw drop. I turned around and bolted. I wasn't attacking. I was running for my life across the grassland with 3 furious shadow lions hot on my heels. It looked like a desperate retreat. The lions gained ground, their claws tearing up the earth, but every time they got close, I'd find a sudden burst of speed to pull away again. I kept them at a precise distance, dangling myself like bait. Wait, Mu Filan whispered, being the first to notice. He's not just running. He's leading them. She was right. A few kilometers ahead sat a massive herd of dragon-horned horses, numbering nearly 3,000. My target wasn't the lions, it was the herd. The recruiters realized my plan, but they couldn't believe it. How could one person handle 3,000 beasts? I drew closer to the herd, the lions roaring behind me. The sound was terrifying. The horses sensed the danger and began to panic, ready to scatter. Their lead stallion let out a piercing neigh, trying to keep them together. Then, the stallion turned and charged, and the entire herd followed in a thundering wave of muscle and bone. This was exactly what I wanted. I flashed a smile. 3,000 horses charging at once was a force of nature. Any normal martial artist would be trampled to dust, but I kept running straight toward them, the lions still acting as my unwitting sheepdogs. Nearby, Wang Liang was wiping blood off his blade. He had dropped to 4th place and was desperate to reclaim the 3rd spot. Suddenly, the ground began to vibrate. He looked up, and his heart nearly leaped out of his chest. A sea of horses was screaming toward him. "Holy crap!" Wang Liang screamed, turning tail and sprinting as fast as his legs could carry him. The stampede cleared out every beast for 10 miles. Wang Liang was exhausted, having barely slept for 3 days to grind points, but the fear of being trampled gave him one last surge of adrenaline. He saw a canyon up ahead. If he could reach the cliffs or climb a tree, he'd survive. With his lungs burning and his energy depleted, he lunged into the canyon and pulled himself onto a high branch just as the herd surged underneath him. I guided the horses right into that canyon. The entrance was wide, but the exit was narrow, only wide enough for 2 or 3 horses at a time. The bottleneck caused a massive pileup. Horses slammed into each other, tripping and falling. It was total chaos. Back at the base, the recruiters were stunned. They had never seen a high-level operation like this in the history of the exams. This wasn't just a hunt, it was a harvest. I slowed down at the canyon entrance and finally turned to face the 3 shadow lions. I drew my C-grade combat saber. The male lion lunged first, and I swung with everything I had, aiming straight for its throat. The beast sensed the lethal power behind the strike and performed a desperate mid-air backflip to retreat. The 2 females skidded to a halt, stunned by my sudden aggression. The male lion let out one last frustrated roar, realized he couldn't win, and turned tail. He took his mates and fled into the distance. I didn't bother chasing them. They had served their purpose as my tools. I turned my attention to the canyon. The horses were trapped and injured, unable to fight back. I leaped into the fray, my saber flashing. My points began to skyrocket. 260, 360, 520. From his tree, Wang Liang watched me in horror. His hands were shaking so hard, he couldn't even hold his weapon. He recognized me from Pei Hu's funeral. He was furious, thinking that if he only had the strength, those points could be his. But he could only watch in agony. The observers noted that I had broken into the top 5. At this rate, I'd overtake Luo Qingxue. Some argued that my stamina would give out soon. My swings were already getting slower. I hit 1,100 points, moving into 3rd place, but I was clearly reaching my limit. "He's smart," one recruiter remarked, but he miscalculated his own endurance. Everyone expected me to retreat and settle for 3rd place. Instead, I dove deeper into the herd. They thought I was insane, risking my life for points I didn't have the strength to take. Only Old Sheen smiled. He knew what I had in my pocket. I reached into my bag and pulled out a top-grade star stone. While others used them for slow cultivation, I was going to use it to fuel a massacre. Most people use star stones for slow, steady cultivation. Using a top-grade star stone just to recover stamina mid-fight? That was unheard of. Even the recruiters in the observation room fell silent. It was a staggering waste of resources, but Old Sheen just smiled. He had seen me pull out 5 of these stones at once before. To me, this wasn't a luxury, it was fuel. As the energy in my body hit rock bottom, I felt a sudden, violent surge of power. My vision cleared, and my muscles stopped screaming. I felt completely refreshed. The other candidates were already running low on supplies, but I had been saving mine for this exact moment. "Wait," one of the recruiters whispered, his voice cracking. "Even a standard star stone shouldn't restore him that fast. Is that a top-grade stone?" The room went quiet. Even these elite teachers couldn't bring themselves to use something so precious just for a stamina boost. They called it a tragedy, a waste of heaven's gifts. I didn't care. My points started moving again. 1,450. In a quiet part of the forest, Luo Qingxue was sitting on the ground, catching her breath. Suddenly, her device chimed with a notification. Her eyes widened. How could anyone be killing beasts this fast? 1,500, 1,600. In just a few minutes, I had surged past her by 200 points. Luo Qingxue felt a sting of indignation. Her pride wouldn't let her accept defeat, so she forced herself up, desperately searching for more prey. But it was hopeless. Within half an hour, I broke 2,000 points. Even with her talent, she couldn't find enough monsters in time to bridge the gap. She's taking a loss today, Mu Filan said with a smirk. It's good for her. Talent isn't everything. She found herself admiring me more and more. Despite my low-level talent rating, she had a gut feeling that my potential far exceeded Luo Qingshue's. The suspense was gone. By the time the final 5-minute warning echoed through the forest, I was sitting at 2,600 points, a full 1,000 points ahead of second place. How did he do it? One candidate muttered, staring at the leaderboard in disbelief. He kicked me out of the top 10 at the very last second. He's not simple, Jiang Xinghe whispered, a dark flicker crossing his face. But no matter what tricks you used, the title of top scholar will be mine. We were all teleported back to the viewing stands. Only the top 10 were told to stay behind. A powerful martial artist in the Golden Body realm stepped forward to announce the rewards. My ears perked up. First place got 10 million blue star coins and 10 body refining pills. Second and third got significantly less. The gap between us was massive. The crowd erupted. These were the highest rewards in the history of the entrance exams. Wang Liang stood at the edge of the group, his eyes burning with hatred. He had dropped from 4th place all the way to 10th because I had stolen his prey and exhausted him. To him, I was just a lucky thief. You used tricks to get first, he hissed under his breath, staring at me. In the ranking matches, I'll expose what a fraud you really are. Nearby, Principal Sun Yongxin was practically glowing. His face was red with excitement. For the first time, his school was the talk of the city. The official stepped forward again. The final rankings will be decided now. We will start from 10th place. You may challenge anyone ranked higher than you. If you win, you swap places. You only get one shot. Wang Liang grinned. As the 10th seed, he got to pick first. Down in the stands, his father, Wang Wenhao, looked worried. He had watched my performance and knew I was dangerous, but he couldn't stop his son. I choose the number 1 seed, Wang Liang shouted, pointing a finger at me. Chu Feng. The crowd buzzed. Wang Liang was a favorite to win it all before his bad luck in the forest. They thought he was just having an off day. I didn't say a word. I vaulted onto the stage, recognizing him immediately. This was the brat who had been disrespectful at Pei Hu's funeral. Chu Feng, I'm going to show you what a real genius looks like, Wang Liang said, his eyes turning sharp. Luck only lasts so long. He raised his fists, and a low, guttural roar echoed through the arena. It was the White Tiger Divine Fist, a C-class technique. The crowd gasped as the sound of a tiger's cry filled the air. Most students hadn't even mastered a basic technique yet, let alone one that produced an audible pressure. The recruiters from the top universities, however, just shook their heads. They knew techniques couldn't bridge the massive gap in raw combat power between us. Never seen a real technique before, have you? Wang Liang taunted. He lunged, becoming a white blur. Roar! The tiger's cry was designed to stun an opponent, causing a split second of paralysis. To a normal martial artist, that half-second was a death sentence. Wang Liang saw me standing still and thought I was frozen in fear. He swung for my face. Thwack! A simple, lightning-fast straight punch caught Wang Liang square in the nose before his fist could even land. He staggered back 3 steps, blood leaking from his nostrils. Beautiful, one of the teachers whispered. My timing had been perfect. They were starting to realize I wasn't just strong. I had the instincts of a predator. I looked at Wang Liang's shocked face and let out a cold laugh. That first punch, that was for being disrespectful at the funeral. I started walking toward him. My steps were rhythmic, steady, and completely devoid of openings, the result of perfectly mastering basic footwork. You should be careful, I warned him, my voice flat. The next one is going to hurt. This second punch is for your disrespect toward Grandmaster Pei Hu, I shouted. Wang Liang looked at me with total confusion. He had no idea what I was talking about, but he didn't have time to process it. I kept closing the distance, step by step. A heavy, suffocating pressure radiated from me, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. He wanted to retreat. I could see the instinct to run twitching in his legs. Die! Wang Liang screamed, forcing himself to stay in the fight. A martial artist who retreats has already lost his path. He lunged at me one last time with a desperate roar. Crack! My fist slammed into his chest. The sound of snapping ribs echoed through the arena. Wang Liang flew backward like a broken doll, but I wasn't done. Before his body could even hit the ground, I blurred forward, staying right on top of him. And this last one, I said, leaping high into the air above his falling frame, is for Pei Hu's youngest son. I delivered a heavy hammer fist straight down. My strike drove him into the floorboards with a sickening thud. A spray of blood erupted from his mouth, staining the wood. Wang Wenhao, his father, gripped his fists so hard his knuckles turned white. He sprinted onto the stage and knelt by his son's mangled body. His face went pale. With injuries this severe, Wang Liang would need at least a year to recover. In the world of martial arts, a year of lost progress was a death sentence. No top-tier university would ever accept him now. Wang Liang coughed up more blood, his eyes turning bloodshot and wild. Dad, avenge me, kill him. Kill him. Slap. Wang Wenhao struck his own son across the face. Stop embarrassing yourself. He looked around at the crowd, his voice tight with forced humility. My son lacked the skill. We've made fools of ourselves. He picked up his son and hurried away. He wasn't stupid. This was a national recruitment event with Gold Body Realm powerhouses watching. Even if he wanted me dead, he couldn't touch me here. Besides, after the strength I just showed, the top 3 universities would be fighting over me. Unless he could wipe me out completely, he didn't dare provoke a future powerhouse. The rankings continued, but nobody dared to challenge me. The fighters ranked 9th through 6th stayed quiet, their eyes averted. Finally, the 5th-ranked student, Gao Yuan, looked toward the 3rd-ranked Jiang Xinghe, eager to move up. Without using that power, you're not his match, a voice whispered to Gao Yuan. Just hold the 4th spot. Getting into a high-ranking school is enough. Gao Yuan gritted his teeth, but nodded. He challenged the 4th-place student instead and won by a narrow margin. Now, it was time for the top 3. The crowd buzzed. Jiang Xinghe hadn't shown his full strength during the preliminary tests. While they knew I was strong, many still thought my 1st-place ranking was a fluke of the point system. On the stage, there was no room for tricks. But everyone was really waiting for the S-class genius, Luo Qingxue. They assumed she was the undisputed number 1. You're strong, Jiang Xinghe said, stepping onto the stage. He looked at me with a calm, oppressive gaze. I hope you don't disappoint me. I didn't bother answering him. My eyes were on Luo Qingxue. She was sitting off to the side, acting like an outsider, completely indifferent to the fights. But then, I noticed her expression shift. She looked excited, like something she had been waiting for was finally happening. What could be more important than this tournament? Before I could finish the thought, Jiang Xinghe moved. His fist tore through the air with nearly 2,800 pounds of force, creating a sonic boom. I was momentarily distracted and barely had time to throw a counterpunch. Boom. The impact sent me stumbling back 2 steps. I shook out my hand. The guy was strong. Usually, a strike like that would send a normal student flying, but I was barely scratched. I focused. I noticed a faint trace of dark energy beneath Jiang Xinghe's eyelids. It made me uneasy. If he wanted to play rough, I'd show him what real power looked like. Jiang Xinghe lunged again, this time putting his full weight into a strike. 3,500 pounds of force. The teachers in the stands started shouting for me to use footwork to dodge. They thought I couldn't handle that kind of raw power. I ignored them. My blood chi had already reached a staggering 3,450 points. A casual swing from me was already 3,500 pounds. And if I used my mastered combat techniques to engage every muscle in my body, my max output was over 5,000. I met his fist head-on. Crash. This time, Jiang Xinghe was the one who went flying back 3 steps. His face turned red as he struggled to stabilize his churning internal energy. The crowd went silent. Jiang Xinghe was known for his strength, yet he just lost a raw power clash? Suddenly, the recruiters from the 3 great universities stood up in unison, looking like they were facing a deadly enemy. A thin, white mist began to roll across the arena. I backed into a corner, dropping into a defensive stance. I looked at Luo Qingxue again. She wasn't scared. She looked thrilled. Was this an attack by the Hall of Yama? No, they wouldn't be this bold. Don't panic, the chief examiner, Rong Xiaoming, shouted. The mist isn't toxic. It's dense with primordial energy. I believe a secret realm is opening. The word secret realm sent a jolt of excitement through the crowd. These were hidden dimensions filled with treasures and opportunities. Most were safe and offered massive rewards for those who could complete their trials. Usually, they were hogged by big sects. Finding a random one opening at a school event was like winning the lottery. I frowned. How did Luo Qingxuan know this was coming? Not even the gold body experts had sensed it. Report. We've found the entrance, a scout yelled. Rong Xiaoming and the university recruiters rushed toward the energy fluctuation to investigate, leaving the rest of us behind. My fight with Jiang Xinghe was officially cut short. As he stepped off the stage, he gave me a dark, lingering look, but I was already staring into the white mist, wondering what was waiting for us inside. Jiang Xinghe gave me one last meaningful glare before walking away. He clearly hadn't expected someone as unremarkable looking as me to possess such explosive power. Boss, a voice whispered nearby. It was Gao Yuan, leaning in close to Jiang Xinghe. The elder just sent word. It looks like this secret realm is specifically restricted to martial artists below the Grandmaster realm. Jiang Xinghe's frustration vanished, replaced by a look of sharp excitement. Is that true? Yes, Gao Yuan nodded. And the elder has a specific task for us. We need to find a way to eliminate Luo Qingxue inside the realm. Jiang Xinghe sneered. I would have done that even without his orders. But don't ignore that Chu Feng kid either. If you run into him, don't hold back. Use that power immediately and kill him. Gao Yuan nodded solemnly. The news he brought was accurate. The entrance requirements were firm. You had to be under 25 years old and below the Grandmaster rank. It was a perfect setup for the students participating in the exam. Even those who hadn't made the top 10 were buzzing with energy. A secret realm was a life-changing opportunity. One lucky find could rewrite their entire future. While everyone else was celebrating, one person was watching me with pure, unadulterated hatred. Wang Liang sat there, teeth clenched, his face pale. Dad, you have to avenge me, he hissed to Wang Wenhao. This injury will take 6 months to heal. I'm missing the most critical growth period of my life, and I've lost my chance to enter the realm. Wang Wenhao's brow furrowed as he looked at his son. Are you trying to get yourself killed? Keep your voice down. I have a plan. Without another word, he turned and walked away. Soon, all the eligible students were gathered at the entrance. A few young teachers were joining us as well. Among them, a familiar figure stood out, a woman in a striking red outfit with a figure that commanded attention. Teacher Su, what are you doing here? I asked, surprised to see Su Quan standing there. I'm entering the realm, obviously, she said, glancing at me. I let my mouth hang open a little. Wait, does that mean you're actually under 25? Before I could finish the sentence, a red-clad leg blurred through the air. I barely managed to snap my elbow up to block the kick. Ow! I faked a pained expression. Teacher Su, are you trying to murder your favorite student? Do I really look that old to you? She huffed, crossing her arms and turning away. I realized then that telling a woman she looked older than 25 was a death wish. I kept my mouth shut and waited for the opening. Once everyone was ready, Rong Xiaoming stepped forward. The preliminary scan of the secret realm is complete, he announced. It's human-friendly, with a danger rating of Earth grade. The crowd erupted in whispers. Earth grade was the lowest danger level. We had hit the jackpot. Rong Xiaoming coughed to quiet the crowd. This is a stroke of luck for all of you. A martial artist must always press forward. After some discussion, we've decided that your performance in this realm will determine your final ranking for the exam. This changed everything. The rankings weren't set in stone yet. Anyone could still rise to the top. However, Rong Xiaoming added, his voice turning serious, there is still a risk of death. Entry is voluntary. I'm in. Me too. The shouts came from every direction. No one was backing out, except for the heavily injured Wang Liang. Rong Xiaoming nodded, looking satisfied. Hosting a joint exam that triggered a secret realm would be a massive boost to his career, and it would undoubtedly raise the overall strength of these students. One final rule, he said. No killing each other for personal gain. Since communication with the outside world is impossible inside, everyone must wear a body recorder. We lined up to receive the devices and clipped them to our chests. I knew this was mostly a hollow threat. If someone really wanted to kill you, they'd just smash the recorder first. It was a deterrent, nothing more. As the gates opened, I saw Luo Qingxue head into the tunnel. I moved quickly to follow right behind her. As I stepped into the shimmering white light, the world blurred. When my vision cleared, I wasn't standing next to her. I was on a lush, green hillside surrounded by thick forest. It looked like the entry points were randomized. I took a deep breath, noticing the air was thick with primordial energy, much denser than the outside world. This was a cultivation paradise. Suddenly, a crisp notification rang in my head. Ding! Hidden quest triggered. First glimpse of the secret realm. Reward, 100 insight points. Rank first for an additional 300 insight points. I grinned. I was just starting to worry about my insight point balance. This was a massive payday. I had to take first place. After a few minutes, a clear, mechanical voice echoed across the entire realm. Welcome to Elite Martial Artist Selection, Realm Number 22. The trial will last 3 days. Your goal is to collect dragon blood grass. The voice explained the scoring system. Green grass was worth 1 point, blue was 3, orange was 10, and the rare red grass was worth 100 points. These points could be traded for rewards at the end. But the real prize was for the top 3 collectors. First place, 5 vials of dragon blood potion. Second place, 2 vials. Third place, 1 vial. My heart skipped a beat. Dragon blood potion was legendary. It was said to be refined from the blood of prehistoric dragons. It didn't care about your natural talent. It directly strengthened your physical body, blood, and vitality. It was the kind of treasure you couldn't buy with money. 5 vials would be a game changer. In another corner of the realm, Jiang Xinghe stood alone. A dark, sinister smile spread across his face as a faint black mist swirled in his eyes. Back on my hillside, a small holographic map appeared in my vision. To my front left, 3 green dots were pulsing. I immediately took off toward them. After a few hundred meters, I found a small, glowing green sprout nestled against the mountainside. So this was dragon blood grass. It emitted a soft green light, making it easy to spot. But as I reached for it, a low growl tore through the air. A level 1 jackal beast lunged at me from the brush. I wasn't surprised. Treasures are always guarded. I pivoted and threw a snap kick, my foot connecting with the beast's skull. There was a sickening crack, and the creature collapsed, dead before it hit the ground. A level 1 beast was nothing to me now. I plucked the grass, tucked it into my bag, and quickly moved to grab the other 2 nearby. However, as I continued searching, I noticed something frustrating. Every time a green dot appeared on my map, it would vanish before I could get there. Other students were moving fast. The player density in this area was way too high. After half a day of trekking, I only had 3 points worth of grass. I stopped to study the map again. The display range was tiny, barely showing a fraction of the realm. If I wanted those 5 vials of potion, I had to find a way to get ahead of the pack. The holographic map only showed the terrain for a few kilometers around me. I had no other leads. I'd already picked every blade of dragon blood grass in this radius, so I had to rely on my gut. I headed north, then west, trekking for several kilometers until a green dot finally pulsed on my screen. I picked up the pace, feeling a surge of excitement. But as I reached the source, I realized someone had beaten me to it. It was Zhou Ming, a classmate of mine. His clothes were torn and ragged, and the carcass of a level 1 beast lay at his feet. He looked exhausted, clearly having just survived a brutal fight. Zhou Ming was one of the few people in my class capable of breaking into the city's top 100. Before I had my system, he was someone I looked up to. He was a good guy, always kind, and he had even given me pointers on my martial arts training back when I was a weakling. Just as a weary Zhou Ming leaned down to pluck the glowing green sprout, a black shadow blurred past him. The figure slammed into Zhou Ming's shoulder, knocking him aside, and snatched the grass right out of the dirt. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" Zhou Ming shouted, his face flushing with anger. "That grass is mine." "Haha, what are you talking about?" The thief was a tall, skinny guy I didn't recognize from our school. He smirked, tossing the grass in his hand. "It's in my hand, so it's mine. Simple as that." Another student stepped out from the brush, a thick, muscular guy with a powerful aura. He was clearly stronger than Zhou Ming. If you're smart, you'll beat it. This grass belongs to us now. Don't go too far, Zhou Ming growled, his fists trembling. We all have recorders. Harming fellow students in the secret realm is forbidden. The tall guy laughed in his face. Who's harming you? We just got to the grass first. The realm is a world of the strong eating the weak. Whoever has the biggest fist makes the rules. Don't tell me you haven't figured that out yet. The two of them shared a laugh. They were from the same school and had teamed up specifically to wait for others to finish off beasts so they could swoop in and steal the loot. The tall guy tossed the grass to his partner. Zhou Ming stood there, helpless, his blood boiling but his body spent from the previous fight. He couldn't take them both on. As the two thieves turned to leave, I stepped out from the shadows. Wait, I said, my voice calm. Don't go yet. I have some business with you. Kid, are you looking for a death wish? The muscular one barked, thinking it was Zhou Ming talking again. They both turned around, but when they saw my face, their expressions froze. I saw the moment they recognized me. I was the top scorer in the citywide exams. Their hearts clearly skipped a beat. Chu Feng, Zhou Ming cried out, his eyes lighting up with hope. What do you want? The muscular student asked, his voice losing its edge. Oh, nothing much, I said, giving them a thin, cold smile. I just wanted to borrow your dragon blood grass for a bit. The two of them frowned, their faces turning ugly. They hadn't expected their own logic to be used against them so quickly. Student Chu, the tall one stammered. Surely you don't need these couple of points? We're from Qingyun First High. How about we just be friends? I kept that harmless smile on my face. We can be friends, sure. Just hand over the grass first. I'm just borrowing it. The two exchanged a quick glance and suddenly bolted in opposite directions. One only made it 3 meters before I closed the gap, grabbed him by the scruff of his neck, and hauled him back like a disobedient kitten. The other made it 10 meters before I did the exact same thing to him. Chu Feng, what are you doing? One of them yelled. Violence between students is prohibited. Who's being violent? I asked, mimicking the tall guy's earlier tone. I'm just borrowing some grass. Zhou Ming, go ahead and search them. Take everything. On it. Zhou Ming didn't hesitate. He stripped them of every bit of loot they had, finding 6 stalks of green dragon blood grass. He was grinning ear to ear, even tossing in a couple of kicks for good measure to vent his frustration. Once we were done, I let them go and we walked away, leaving them fuming in the dirt. Chu Feng, we hit the jackpot. Zhou Ming said, looking at the pile of grass. This is a huge haul. I looked at the green sprouts and sighed. It's only 6 points. I've been wandering this map for hours and haven't seen a single blue stalk yet. Bluegrass. Zhou Ming blinked. I know where that is. My head snapped toward him. You've seen it. Yeah, he explained. I was spawned near the boundary where the green and blue zones meet. Most people are in the green zone, but the blue zone is just further in. I didn't go deep because I can't handle level 2 beasts. Finally, a real lead. I felt a surge of adrenaline. I took 3 of the green stalks and shoved them into Zhou Ming's hands. This is for the info, I told him. Wait, this is too much, he stammered, his mouth hanging open. I only need 1. I didn't give him a choice. I left him there with the grass and took off toward the north. I covered about 50 kilometers, pushing deep into the territory he described. Suddenly, my map chirped. 3 blue dots appeared on the screen. 3 stalks of blue dragon blood grass, all in one spot. I moved like a predator. Within 30 minutes, I had hunted down a fire fox, a great-toothed jackal, and a yellow-maned wolf, all level 2 beasts. With each kill, I claimed a blue stalk. My luck was finally turning, but I wasn't satisfied with just blue grass. I kept heading north. My real targets were the orange and red varieties. That's where the real power was hidden. I knew the math. Orange dragon blood grass was worth 10 points, but the red variety was the real prize, a staggering 100 points. If I wanted to secure the top spot, I had to find the red stalks or gather a massive amount of orange ones. I kept pushing north. Eventually, a single orange dot blinked onto my map. I had reached the orange zone. As I approached the light, I spotted my target, a level 3 wind-chasing wolf. It was taking a nap in the afternoon sun. These beasts were roughly equal to a level 3 martial artist in strength, but their speed was legendary, often rivaling a level 4. For me, it wasn't a threat, but I didn't want to be loud. I used my basic combat techniques to suppress my aura, steadying my breath as I crept toward it. But the closer I got, the more a strange, cold sensation prickled at the back of my neck. It was a sense of danger. I stopped. I analyzed the wolf. It couldn't possibly be the source of this dread. I could kill it in seconds. I shook off the feeling, heightened my alertness, and moved in. The wolf remained fast asleep, unaware I was only 3 meters away. I took one more step. The wolf's ear twitched. Now, I drew the long blade from my back and lunged. I swung from the bottom up, the steel sliding through the wolf's underbelly like paper. A long, jagged wound opened up. The beast let out a pathetic yelp as its internal organs spilled onto the grass. It was a perfect strike. The wolf was finished, losing its ability to fight instantly. "I'll make it quick," I muttered, raising my blade to take its head. Just as my edge touched its fur, a sudden, violent gust of wind screamed toward me. That sense of danger exploded. Someone was aiming a lethal strike directly at my heart from behind. I didn't have time to finish the wolf. I threw myself to the side, performing a desperate, clumsy roll across the dirt. It was ugly, but it saved my life. A long sword whistled through the air, missing my spine by less than an inch. I scrambled to my feet, clutching my saber, and faced my attacker. It was a tall, thin man. I recognized him immediately. It was Gao Yuan, one of the top 10 students in the rankings. Outside the secret realm, in the command center, a tense conversation was happening. The chief examiner, Rong Xiuming, stood with an older man named Yu Jingming. "Congratulations, Excellency Rong," Yu Jingming said with a flattering smile. "Discovering this secret realm will provide the Alliance with so many talents." Rong Xiuming remained cold. "It's just a mission. These small rewards from the Alliance don't matter as much as breaking through to the next realm." "Of course," Yu Jingming sighed. "At my age, my cultivation has stalled. I have to rely on these rewards. Though, I have managed to reach the peak of the Great Grandmaster level recently." Rong Xiuming glanced at him sharply. "From mid-stage to peak in 3 years? Not many in the Alliance can claim that." Yu Jingming coughed, waving it off as luck, but he quickly shifted the topic to the students he had scouted. He praised Luo Qingxue, Jiang Xinghe, and Gao Yuan, claiming they all had top 5 potential. But Rong Xiuming wasn't interested in them. "None of them compare to Chu Feng," Rong Xiuming stated. Yu Jingming shook his head. "His strength is impressive, but his talent is lacking. I have more faith in Jiang Xinghe and Gao Yuan. They are steady. They haven't even shown their true cards yet." Yu Jingming smiled to himself. He knew what was happening inside. He didn't care about Luo Qingxue's talent or Chu Feng's sudden rise. He had given his students secret techniques. He was waiting for the moment the gates opened and Jiang Xinghe walked out as the champion, while Luo Qingxue and Chu Feng remained inside as corpses. Back in the secret realm, I stared at Gao Yuan. "Who sent you? Why are you attacking me?" Gao Yuan didn't speak. His eyes began to cloud over with a swirling, pitch-black mist. "The Hall of Yahello?" I hissed. I remembered that black energy. It was the same power used by the experts who had attacked me and Chu Waner before. Gao Yuan let out a cold snort. He looked relieved that he had listened to Jiang Xinghe and activated this power immediately. Otherwise, he might not have been able to handle me. I knew Gao Yuan's stats. He was supposed to be a peak level 2 martial artist. But right now, the energy radiating off him wasn't blood chi. It was something twisted and dark. His power level was spiking past level 3. That explained how he had hidden from my senses. Without a word, Gao Yuan transformed into a black blur, his sword slashing toward me. "Too slow," I said. Even with his forbidden power-up, his movements were full of holes. I didn't retreat. I stepped into his guard, my saber meeting his sword with a deafening clang. The impact sent a shock wave through the air. Gao Yuan staggered back 3 steps, his face pale with shock. I didn't move an inch. "How?" he gasped. I jumped an entire level. He looked at the recording device on his wrist, and then back at me. He had used the forbidden power of the Hall of Yahello. There was no going back now. If he didn't kill me here, he was a dead man anyway. He tightened his grip, his eyes burning with desperate murder. I watched Gao Yuan grit his teeth, his face contorting with desperation. He knew he had to destroy both of our recording devices. If he didn't, and he survived, his true identity would be exposed. He'd be a dead man walking. He tried to push himself up, but my saber was already flashing toward his chest. Crap, he hissed. He threw his body into a frantic roll, barely avoiding a lethal blow, but my blade still bit deep into his thigh. Blood sprayed across the ground. I didn't let up. My movements were fluid, relentless. Suddenly, the world around me flickered. The secret realm, the blood, and the dying assassin vanished like a bad dream. I blinked. I wasn't in the secret realm anymore. I was standing in a familiar university courtyard. Wait, what? I was supposed to be done. I had finished the mission as the villain Li Ran. I was supposed to get my $100 million bonus and go home. I had played the part of the arrogant idiot perfectly. System, get out here. I screamed in my head. Why am I still in this hellhole? A cold, mechanical voice echoed in my mind. Apologies, host. Due to errors in your previous performance as the villain, plot holes have emerged. You must repeat the scenario one more time. I felt my blood boil. Repeat it? You want me to be a simp for the female lead all over again? Rest assured, the system replied. This time I will monitor the plot closely. If you succeed, the bonus will be increased to $10 billion, plus any reward you desire. 10 billion. And a wish. Fine. I could play the clown one more time. I was a professional villain, after all. The script for this scene was simple. I, Li Ran, would publicly harass the female lead, Mu Bingxian. Then, the protagonist, Li Ming, would step in to stop me. I just had to act obsessed, ignore her rejection, and wait for the hero to slap my face. Easy money. I plastered a greasy smile on my face and held out a bouquet of flowers. Bingxian, I love you. Just be with me. The cars, the houses, everything will be yours. Don't you want a practical, successful man like me? Mu Bingxian looked at me with cold eyes. Li Ran, I've said it many times. I don't like you. Stop bothering me. Perfect, I thought. Now, just wait for the hero to show up. But then, something weird happened. Mu Bingxian reached out and actually took the flowers. The crowd gasped. No way. The goddess actually accepted the simp's flowers. My heart skipped a beat, but not for the right reason. System, what's going on? Why did she take them? Is she crazy? She's ruining the script. Maybe she's afraid of my family, I reasoned. The Li family was the most powerful in the city. But if she took the flowers, how was the hero supposed to charge in and save her? Mu Bingxian was supposed to have a germophobia-level hatred for touch. I decided to push it. I reached for her hand. Shake me off. Do it now. But she didn't move. She just stood there, looking at me. Is she really into me? I panicked. No, she's acting. She has to be. Suddenly, she pulled her hand back. Who likes you? Get away. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Thank God. She finally rejected me. Right on cue, a man stepped out of the crowd. Li Ming, the protagonist. He looked like a typical hidden expert returning from abroad. To everyone else, he was a nobody, but I knew he was a top-tier mercenary hiding his identity. Stop bothering her, Li Ming said, his voice full of righteous fury. She doesn't like you. I sneered, falling back into my role. And who the hell are you? Do you know who I am? I'll have you kicked out of this city. Even if the Li family rules the sky, Li Ming declared, you won't bully her while I'm here. God, he's so cringy, I thought. I waved my hand to my bodyguards. Beat this idiot up. Throw him as far away as possible. The bodyguards swarmed him. Usually, this is where the hero shows off, but the script said he had to take a beating to gain the female lead's sympathy. He was faking his injuries, pretending to be weak to get close to her. I watched my guards pummel him. I looked at Mu Bingxian, expecting her to rush to his side. But she just stood there, watching with an expression of complete indifference. Asterisk, hey, go save your man. Asterisk, I screamed internally. Why aren't you doing anything? The plot was falling apart. If my guards actually broke him, the story would end right here. I had to escalate. See this, Bingxian? I shouted, acting as villainous as possible. This is what happens when people get close to you. If you don't want to see him die, stay with me. Mu Bingxian looked at me and tilted her head. I choose C. Asterisk C? What the hell is C? Asterisk. Before I could figure it out, a new figure appeared. Bai Weiwei. The youngest professor at the university and the second female lead. Stop this, she commanded. Li Ming looked up from the ground, coughing blood. Teacher, Li Ran is harassing Mu Bingxian. I tried to stop him, but he threatened me. I rolled my eyes. Nice acting, hero. I looked at Bai Weiwei. In the original plot, Li Ming wins her over with a revolutionary skincare formula. What she doesn't know, and what I knew because I'd read the script, was that the formula was stolen and had dangerous side effects. Teacher, I said, keeping my voice arrogant. I'm just pursuing someone I love. Is that a crime? Bai Weiwei glared at me. I don't care about your feelings, but brawling on campus is a violation of school rules. You will be punished. Yes, I cheered inside. The plot is back on track. I looked at Li Ming, who was trying to act grateful toward the professor. Teacher Bai, thank you. Do you have time for lunch? I'd like to discuss my research project with you. Bai Weiwei's expression was cold. Your project needs to be re-audited. I'll let you know the results. Li Ming froze. But, you said it was guaranteed to win an award? He looked panicked. He probably thought I was sabotaging him behind the scenes. Little did he know, the goddess he was trying to impress was already starting to see through his lies. I smirked at him one last time. Lucky you, kid. The professor saved your skin today. But Bingxian? She's mine sooner or later. I turned and walked away, feeling the $10 billion getting a little bit closer. Being a villain was exhausting, but at least I was good at it.